That's why I said that. Probably not.
So we're gonna do what we can. We're gonna talk a little bit about that kind of stuff in here. We might just have the agenda a little bit. What's that?
I want to make an introduction.
Oh, certainly.
I'm going to make myself known. I'm Chris, who came down from Austin to join us today. Chris leads our state team, and Eric is the CIO over at the Mansboro. Hi, I'm Terry. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Oh, great. Yeah. He's like, no, I'm supposed to be here. I am.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I haven't looked at the agenda last week.
Yeah, you guys have been a little bit busy. I was on the site yesterday and was able to see camping and all of that up there.
Good to see you.
Don't write, you don't call.
I know. Such a bad friend.
I still got a bounce back yesterday, so email still.
It's still in a, so we're getting the emails, but.
That's what Margie told me, so she can see all the
After
RCPs.
72 hours, it bounces back and says that it wasn't responded to because it hadn't cleared the floor yet. But that was actually supposed to happen last night. So hopefully,
How many hopefully have you sent?
28 times a day.
Well, that's your message. Was the second one? Just thinking of you, and I told you.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, so if you need something, within what I can do with my resource, I got some stuff in my schedule where there's lots of time, so. Border end, cybersecurity stuff, whatever you need. Yeah, so if you need some fresh blood, just let me know, I can do help.
Yeah. So we had, what it was, figure out today was the.
I don't know where they're calling me from.
We're putting together a SWAT team to hunt you guys down, take them out.
You know, when we got the email of the, Jimmy Ball, they didn't show.
No, yeah. No.
Good morning, somewhere. Right, oh, yeah, it's Thursday. Been crazy about that. Well,
I got 5 minutes. Morning, MDA. How are you? Morning, Robbie.
One thing.
I thought I had to look at the table and see how it looks.
You guys probably don't have the hand signals down. Get that your host. Now I have
They're like bridging. No, but I mean, it was like, you're right, and then they said something about that. Well, they said something about this last too, and I was like, how was it like that? Because when they said it out loud, it was like, okay, goal potential. Okay, I was like, I get it. That was the buzzword. Yeah, it works sometimes. I
What's that? ACS is free too. This is free. But then if I go to like Frontier Building, they want like $200 an hour. So it's just on just west of our town. It's awesome. ACS. It's called ACS. Hey, that reservation's only half the size of 6.
Same thing, nonprofit community groups.
And that's the gig. So nonprofit community groups, free people go in there. Like I order my deli spread. 90 minutes there. Tally here.
Is Keith been on the ball for you? Good. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might drop in every now and then. There's something going on. Your bank's other natural gas companies there now? There's going to cause some emerge. Yeah, so he was asking me, I think about it, about it, but yeah, so you know how I try to be up there. Oh, that's right. John and I were going out like a year ago and trying to just brainstorm some things they could be doing, but I've got Keith jumping right in there. He will get him up to Alaska again. He does, and if they're been into that natural gas merge, the same with Trudge, and that's all, like kind of like Trudge, and just will let power. It's all interesting. Like, yeah, it's hard trying to work on, but trying to look at things other too. Trying to work with small companies.
Hey, Aaron. You have a slide on you want to someone here from the Muni? Yeah.
He's Snoopy.
Okay. I saw police here a minute ago, hopefully looking for a parking ticket. So. Yeah. Well.
I know, then we can do it. Sunburn.
Can you hear me okay? Oh, yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. I wasn't sure who was going to show up because, as you see, I think we only have 2 hands here from the Master Borough tonight. So, but we had to pull Eric away, and then Joe works as a project manager there as well. So, kind of busy the last 3 weeks, so we're going to highlight what's been going on in Matt Superdoor here for a few minutes. But this is the agenda, and so as you know, we changed it up a little bit for the 8:30 and also for the lunchtime. We're going to talk about the incident, a little bit more what it means for smart communities. So that'll be a little more free-form discussion. But before I get going, we have a little housekeeping presentation. You want that?
No.
Okay.
He doesn't need to record. All right, welcome everybody. I know a lot of you have been in here before, but some of you are new, and so I just want to go over a couple quick safety things with you, and then just some general location stuff, so you know where everything is while you're here throughout the course of the morning. So the first thing is the emergency stuff. If we have the alarm go off, we don't do drills in this building, so we actually want you to leave as quickly as possible if you hear the alarm. So for this room, the closest exit is going to be the emergency exit right here, or the 2 doors that you came in. You're welcome to exit through those, of course. Now, if you can't go out these, or if you're wandering around on a break, at the far end of this main hallway here, on the right-hand side, there's another emergency exit. You're more than welcome to use that one as well. There is an alarm on it, though, so please don't use it if it's not really an emergency. It will go off if you open the door. Once you get outside, we want everybody to meet in the same location, and that's our north parking lot. The one just here behind the building by the Early Learning Center, or on the Benson or Main BP building side of this building. That's just so we can make sure you're all accounted for. We don't want to send somebody back in here looking for you if it's not necessary. So keep an eye out for everybody in your group. If there's people that come in later and maybe don't know where to go, get them going the right way if you can. Let us know if you see somebody come out of the building that can't make it to that location for whatever reason, or if they just go in a weird direction and you can't get their attention. Let us know. We don't want to send somebody back in here looking for them if it's not necessary. Now, if there's a serious medical emergency or problem, please come out and grab me at the front desk. Hopefully I can help out or get medical professionals over here quickly. It's a hard building to find if you haven't been here before, so we want to make sure that the medical professionals get here fast and they don't go to the wrong BP building. So keep me up to date on that for sure. Otherwise, if something minor comes up, we do have a first aid kit in the main hallway as well as an AED. The AED is just at the base of the stairs that you see in the main hallway there. As soon as you hit the stairs, turn right and you'll see it hanging right there on the wall. And then the first aid kit is just past that next to the elevator. Otherwise, quick note on earthquakes, since we do have those occasionally. We do ask that you guys get under the tables here. I realize there's different ideas on what you should and shouldn't do during earthquakes, so if you don't feel the need to get under the table, please at least duck and cover. And stay in the room until we've made sure the rest of the building is safe to exit through or go running out into. I think that's it for the safety part of it. Any questions on that? You guys all remember where to go if we evacuate? Perfect. I'm going to trust you on that. Couple non-safety related things. That bathrooms are out in the main hallway to the right-hand side of the stairs. There's another set above them as well. You're welcome to use any of them. And then down past that, there's a little coffee and water station. Now you guys have coffee with catering, and that's awesome. But if you want to use the water and ice machine or the sink or anything like that in the little coffee station right there next to the elevator, you're more than welcome to. Although there's hot water there in that station as well. So if you run out of something in your little catering section, feel free to use anything in there. Otherwise, let me know if you have any questions or problems or anything that comes up while you're here. My name is Sandra. I would be more than happy to help out or answer any questions.
Thank you. So yeah, if you haven't found it yet, so that this down the hall, about 50 feet is the pastries and coffee and so forth. And then of course we have lunch here at about 11:30. Okay, with that, but this is just really what it's all about, right? So this is what we call our success measures, but essentially more information to more people, making all of our work more transparent, more engaged citizens, and more informed decisions. And a lot of you are making progress in all of that, whether it be customers or to the residents that you serve. And then for this forum, this is the 10th forum. So it's been 2.5 years now. But education and knowledge gain, number of opportunities, and new information and services that you all are providing to residents and customers, and how well you can leverage and kind of integrate your systems with other partners, perhaps as local government to utilities and so forth. So we've been really kind of work and nurture that for the last couple of years. Made a little bit of headway, so we have draft agreements with Palmer and with Wasilla in the Mat-Su Valley. They're a little bit on hold right now. So But with that, I just want to do a quickly go around the room for introductions, and then Eric, I got actually a slide prop for you here for the highlights. So if you want to start.
Yeah, so I'm Eric White, the IT director at the Nancy Borough. Oh. And we're just gonna go around to introductions?
Yep.
In this area.
Oh, well, I'll come up and speak here, but let's just go ahead and do introductions.
Tim Mooney, Carter, out of Seattle.
Joe Quickle, contract project manager, Nancy Borough.
Amy McPherson, GIS analyst, Chris Nicola from Esri.
Jen Morganson from Esri.
John Rice, Matt News Collector.
Sierra Alcantara with MTA.
Robbie Nash, the engineering manager for MTA.
Michael Weinstein, MTA.
Jackie Kenchelo, MTA Community and Public Affairs.
Justin Burgess, MTA Business Development.
Christina Powell, MTA.
Linda Jerger, DNR. Aaron Palmer, DNR.
Patty Robinson, OIT.
Carrie Marble, DNR. Grace Roging, Division of Community and Regional Affairs.
Rob Bonesville, Gardner, here in Alaska.
Dave Wallace, City of Palmer.
Steve Culligan with Regional Terra. Brian Kirby, Madison School District. Jim Mates, Business Improvement Group, and adjunct at the University of Alaska.
Nicole Kelleher, Alaska Railroad.
Aaron Butter, Alaska Railroad.
Harry Banks, Matsu College.
Joel Mariani, Great Land Trust.
Trish Zad, Matsuboro, School District.
Everything. Good evening, Mike.
Mike Malevsky from Radio Free Palmer, and for some reason 10 people are interested in watching this from afar. So.
It's double from last time.
One more in the back here.
Amber Jackson, Municipality of Anchorage.
Good. All right, is this on? This is working. Do I need this? Everybody can hear me okay?
If you speak using your big voice, no problem.
If I use my, hold my big boy pants, okay. Use my big boy voice, okay. All right, well, welcome everyone, and thank you for coming again. Wow, you know, I guess considering our situation, being here today is quite a kind of an accomplishment for the Matsu anyway. So, and I know for all of you, you're quite interested in what's happening. So I would like to tell you a little bit about what's going on, what we've learned, and things that are happening. But I think I want to begin by saying that I think this effort that we have all been involved in now for the past 2.5 years has actually contributed to the success of the recovery that we're undergoing right now. And, you know, we have talked about partnerships, we have talked about sharing information, and we've talked about how we can work together. And I just got to say that since this thing began, personal level, our better. So I do attribute it to this. You know, right now I'm looking at, you know, we're talking about smart communities, but really what I'm looking at in this recovery effort is kind of heroic communities, and I think we all need to take a great deal of pride in how we come together when we have difficulties like this and work together to get the job done. I've got lots of people in the office right now. I think our staff probably tripled in size the next day, and you know, different vendors and different organizations. Everybody's working in there shoulder to shoulder, getting the job done. And there, you know, there are no vendors. There is no competition. It's just recover and get the job done. So I want to put out a big thanks to all of you and all the people that have been helping in this. And also understanding that you know, the people that are there working hard are doing a great job, but the families are also supporting, because it's not just the people in the office, but it's the families at home that are also supporting this effort. So I do want to pass along those thanks to everyone. And again, I think groups like this have large contribution to the talk about what's going on here. And again, this is not necessarily the first time that I've spoken about this publicly. And by sharing information, by being somewhat transparent, we have gotten information out about this attack to a number of different organizations. And I think that's helped a number of organizations prevent, damage or further damage in their own organizations. We were hit by, what is often referred to as a zero-day attack, and what that means is the attacks have yet again morphed into something you don't recognize. They slip in behind your defenses because you don't see it coming, and then they get you. And then by getting this information out to other organizations, now they know what to look for, and so they can either prevent or contain a lot more quickly. So I would continue to stress to groups like ours that we need to be connected. We need to be talking about these things. We need to be sharing this kind of information. So, next time it's going to be somebody else in the room. And when you get hit, I want that information so I can try to contain it on my end as well. So what we're learning about this, I suspect you heard a lot about this in the news, that it started as something called phishing attacks in your email. So you get an email that comes in and you either click on a link or you open an attachment that's got the bad stuff in there, and they very quietly get into your network at that point, and then start exploring your network and start getting into your defenses, lowering your defenses, and then start spreading themselves in all corners and start hiding in all corners of your network. And then they just kind of lay in wait for whatever event might occur where they want to launch the bigger attacks. Now, it might not even be the same group that's launching the bigger attack. One group gets in and then they sell your network or sell their service to some other group, and more stuff gets in. And that's what we're finding. Very, very sophisticated attacks, very insidious attacks, very well-funded groups that are doing this. We find that their tactics are, they are now attacking local governments because they know that we can't afford the same kind of security that some of the larger organizations or larger governments can afford. So they're coming after the local governments. And this isn't just happening in Alaska, it's happening all over the lower 48, it's happening all over the world. I've got some folks in my office right now that work these things, and they work them globally, and they're showing me the attack progression, and we're just kind of part of that. It appears we've been digging through the wreckage here of our network, and we're finding that very similar to probably what you're hearing on the national news for some of these attacks is what's happened to us. And that was an email attachment, and it came from somebody we know and trust. It came from their account. It didn't come from a spoofed account. It came from their account because their network had been compromised. And then they got into their email, sent us an email, and then they get into our accounts, and then they compromise our accounts, and then you all get emails. And then the way it appears to be working is you go to the softest target, and you probably heard this nationally for electric companies. They're doing it right now, and it appears that the same thing happened to us, is that first you go to a small local company, right? Softest target possible. You compromise their account. And then we get an email from one of our vendors, and it's just, of course we're going to open it, right? Because it's you all, it's people we trust. And so we open that email, and boom, that thing slips in, and it sits around for a while and compromises our stuff, and then it propagates out. And so they're working a progression from the softest target, the smallest organization, to the next size organization, to the next, get local government, then state, then federal. So the ultimate prize is to get the largest networks, to get the largest fish here. That's what they're after. But they're finding that the full frontal attack that they've been doing for years doesn't work. We can't get into the federal government systems easily, so we come around the back door and we work our way up. So those are the things that we've got to be vigilant for going forward. And so again, we've talked about these things. I've talked about them in other groups. I've talked about them with federal law enforcement, and we've had other meetings in the last 3 weeks about this and tried to spread this information to other organizations. And I know a lot of friends of ours are locking down their systems real rapidly and looking for these very specific threats. And so I think, you know, I told my team, we're all a team together here. And we've taken our hit, and we're going to survive it. But it's obviously been very costly, very disruptive, but again, by working together, and you know, not all of us get disrupted. And I think very realistically, you know, it's going to happen again. They're going to change their attack vectors, and somebody else is going to get hit. Hopefully, going forward in my situation, we'll be able to contain it a little better. One of the things that, I don't know if it's on the slide here or not, but one of the things that we encountered is, of course, we weren't completely defenseless against this kind of stuff. You know, we had our endpoint protection, we had our antivirus, but as a zero-day attack, it slipped very fast at. We didn't recognize it. Our national brand antivirus didn't pick this up. And none of them will pick up all of them. So none of these are going to be complete protection. And then for our backup systems and for our disaster recovery systems, they were all designed so that these kinds of attacks couldn't affect that. So we could take our backups and quickly bring everything back up and be back online in very short order. And it was called a theoretical exploit to be able to get into these backup systems and these disaster recovery systems. Guess what? It's not theoretical anymore. They got through it and they got into ours, and that's why it's taken us longer to recover. So the companies that we deal with, Cisco, Dell, Commvault, people that our system was designed around that this doesn't happen to, they're scrambling right now trying to figure out how are we going to stop this new theoretical exploit. How are we going to stop this so this doesn't happen to other folks? One of the biggest things that we told people right away was your DR is connected, right? You're constantly doing backups every night. You're sending stuff online to your backup systems. Disconnect them. You know, get them disconnected. Get disconnected copies immediately. Interestingly, you all heard about Valdez as well. Valdez was still doing backup tapes, right? The borough stopped doing backup tapes, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago before I got there. So we stopped having this disconnected backups where you take the tapes over to the bank and you put them over to the bank and you picked up their tapes and they could come back and restore a little bit more quickly. Now their stuff was 3 or 4 months old, but at least they can get back up and running. So some of these things where as we have progressed, we've learned new techniques to do things. Sometimes the old techniques still need to be considered. And I know companies that are really kind of sweating it, trying to figure out how do we take care of those things. Vendors that have been in my office that have designed this stuff for us, every one of their other customers is calling them and saying, hey, immediately get the stuff disconnected, immediately start looking for these things. And not a lot of this has gone public. Those companies have to go public if they want to on their own. But as they have started looking, they found things and they've stopped it before it could do any more damage. In our case, we started to see we got an antivirus update. We started to see a little bit of traffic on our antivirus, and then we had a few workstations, then we had a few more, and then we had a bunch more. We realized we had kind of an issue. So we started digging over. The virus wasn't cleaning everything. We found a bunch of other things that wasn't even being detected. But my programmers on staff looked in there and said, hey, this shouldn't be in there. So we started working with MSI-SAC and other organizations, and they said, what is this? We don't know. Get rid of it. And so we wrote some scripts to get rid of it. And the night that we launched those scripts to get rid of it, bam, the bigger attack hit and shut down the whole thing. So they were inside our network and they were laying in wait. And as soon as we poked the bear, it woke up and hit big. So again, seeing that attack vector and seeing that behavior, we have now been able to let other people know what's going on and hopefully prevent that from happening to others. So, and this is, this is new stuff. Not all of these Trojans and ransomwares and other kinds of attacks do this, but this one was a very well coordinated attack. So it's a little bit about what we have faced, a little bit of an update, I guess, from Matsu Borough, having to redesign and rework a bunch of our network. We're spending money on security that I couldn't get funding for in the past. So it's a pay me now or pay me later kind of a situation, and we are paying later, unfortunately. But it's the live and learn portion of this. Good stuff in place that will keep us safe for a while, and undoubtedly the attackers will find a way around it. But part of what's happening is I'm putting things in place that I simply do not have the staff necessary to even maintain. I don't have the staff that can architect it and put it in place. I don't have the staff that can even maintain it. And so I'm going to have a model of managed service where I'm going to have to outsource the management of this kind of stuff. And even at that, it's very difficult for an organization of our size to afford. Having additional conversations, with some of the people from the Lower 48 that are up helping us about what do we do? How do we even begin to fight this stuff long term? How do we afford to do this? We can't double the mill rate in the borough and have everybody pay taxes to be able to afford this. It's just not realistic. So how are we going to do this? And we are going to have to come together as smart communities to combine resources so that multiple organizations can combine resources and get some high-powered folks in to manage these networks, to install them, manage them, and try to keep us safe. And so I don't see another option for this. I think we do probably have some things on the horizon in terms of artificial intelligence that will help us, but as soon as we employ artificial intelligence, so will they. So this is going to be a never-ending war, a never-ending escalation, and we are going to have to continue to band together as a group like this in order to fight it. So I hope that we can continue these smart community discussions. I hope that maybe from today and future sessions we can talk about how we can work together and how, as smaller organizations that can't afford the big guns, how do we come together and afford the big guns? So again, I think it's going to be very important. Our recovery, everybody here knows the Matsu Borough is the size of West Virginia. We're scattered out all over the place. We've got 47 sites that we support. We have over 500 workstations scattered out over 500 sites, about 700 telephones on desks that are all IP phones. So we have quite a tremendous effort to collect all that, bring it in, scrub it, clean it, and push it back out. I think we were over 80% of the 500 machines are pushed back out to desktops in the borough. And we've got almost maybe 2 or 3 phones that aren't hooked up yet, but almost all that is done. One of the issues that we had in the Matsu is I have my network infrastructure, right? But now as soon as this stuff hits, I have to keep the evidence, which is the corrupted stuff. So I have to segregate that. Then I have to have a place where I can take the corrupted stuff and bring it over here and clean it. And then when I'm done cleaning it, I want to build a brand new network and bring my services back up. So I split my infrastructure into what we are calling 3 islands. The first one's Anthrax Island. You don't want to go there, okay? And that's going to be the clean environment until we hook it up and add users. But it'll be clean for a little while. And so a tremendous challenge to try to support those 3 islands on the given infrastructure, right? Now I don't have enough infrastructure to stand up my new environment. Luckily, we had some servers that were life cycled out, so we already had some servers on order. They've come in and it's helped us. Anthrax Island, I've got to keep all that for evidence, so I can't even just dump it, wipe it, and move on. That stuff all has to be kept for the FBI, for forensics. It has to be kept for our insurance carrier, for forensics. And then we've got another forensics team in there looking at it. There's a possibility that I'll get the decryption key at some point, 6 months down the line, even 2 years down the line. So we might have to store that data for a long, long time in order to maybe recover some data sometime down the road. So again, I've got this Anthrax Island that I'm going to have to store for quite some time. So that's been a challenge. We've moved a lot of this data. We've, even though our backups were corrupted, we've had some snapshots and whatnot. We had multi-layer backups, and I'm sure most of you have those kinds of things. We've got kind of multi-tiered, multi-layered backup and disaster recovery. Luckily, some of the snapshots that we had there have a large amount of our data still available. We've had to go back and look and say, when was this snapshot taken? When did the attack actually start? Right now, it looks like it was probably April 21st. They've been in our network for a couple of months before they launched the attack. And so all of that data that now is recoverable, we've got to go through and scrub it. And as we're scrubbing it, guess what? There's still stuff in there, and we're finding it. We were finding old viruses that are just kind of hanging around. And people's home drives that were on shares, there's junk in there. So we're finding all kinds of junk hanging around. So the scrubbing effort is well worthwhile. So we've gotten through a large portion of that scrubbing effort, and then we are getting new systems built up on Paradise Island. I've got the infrastructure built, and we're starting to show some progress as far as getting some services back to some of our users. And we'll start looking pretty good. I've used the analogy of our house is burned down. And the first thing we got to do is we got to sift through the rubble and see what's salvageable. And the next thing we got to do is clear away the debris. And then we've got to start laying a new foundation, and that's what we've been doing up at the Matsu Borough the last couple of weeks, is laying a new foundation. But what in that foundation, that's all below ground, so people aren't necessarily seeing progress. So I've got another battle, and that's a PR battle, and that's showing some progress. Because, okay, we've been supportive, but what's going on? I still don't have my email. And so that's kind of a tough battle to fight, but I've got to have that solid foundation before I start putting walls up, or it all comes crashing down on me again. So we're trying to balance that, getting that foundation built, and now we're starting to put some walls up. Of course, as good IT people, everybody wants the best thing right out the gate. This is going to be the most solid new system. We're not going to get there. We need to stand up some systems and get our people back to work without everything in place that we have to have in place long term. Okay? So I've been telling people we're going to put some walls up, and we're going to have some Tyvek siding on it for a while. Yeah, it's Alaska. You can throw a blue tarp over the roof. That's all right. But we're going to have to make some of those decisions and get some services back in the hands of our people so that we can get back to work. Does that come with risk? It certainly does come with risk. And we're trying to mitigate those risks. We're trying to keep that risk as low as possible while we're doing that, so that as we come up, we don't get slaughtered again. And I think we're on the right track for that. I've got, again, some really great folks around that can help us mitigate those risks. But we're going to kind of come up slowly. And of course, the question is always asked, when are you going to be done? Sooner or later. But that's, we're not going to be done. We're going to get services restored, and it's probably several weeks out yet to get 100% restoration. of what we had in the past, but we're never gonna be done. So, I think that's just our new reality. I would like to answer any questions if anybody's got any.
Do you think the answer moving forward is a technology answer, or is it like a multi-pronged approach? Is it a people education answer? How do you not get into this situation?
Yes, yes, and yes. It is going to be a technology answer, and it's going to be a people and education answer as well. The technology alone is not the easiest way to come and open the back door for you. And that's the social engineering, that's the phishing attack. And so we've got to keep up good education. And quite frankly, what we have found on this attack, all the education in the world wouldn't help. Social engineering attack, and again, the attack came from somebody we know and trust. I mean, is it? I'm probably dating myself here. Anybody remember when first? Guess what? We're back. We're back to that. We're back. So if you're getting an email and you weren't expecting it from that person, you might want to pick up a phone call and ask them, "Hey, did you just send me a big document that says virus in it?" And that's that is one of the things that they're talking about for these attacks, these phishing attacks, and we had it there. This wasn't this particular attack, but we just had this a few weeks ago. Our purchasing officer went on vacation fishing, and the manager in the bureau got an email, looked like it was from him, with this invoice that had to be paid. Please open it, print it, and pay it. He wasn't there. He didn't send that email. So they're actually watching, and if they can get information about, maybe on Facebook, that, hey, going fishing next week, the very next day, the emails start to roll. So you can't call that person and ask them. Yeah, oh my gosh, that's exactly right. It's a lot of stuff that dominates curious.
So in the discussion, two of the alerts today are who's incentivized to do harm to public entities and the like. I guess that's probably not public information, but in general, what are you learning from this about pay?
Yeah. So there was a ransomware component, right? Which would the incentive then would be money. And there are those involved in this that believe that may be the incentive. However, that also may be a cover. And the ransomware portion of this is actually just a cover to encrypt the data and cover their tracks. And so we've kind of got a couple of things going on. Yes, we did have a ransom demand, but when we first looked at this and the supposed or the presumed they that was doing this isn't, and so the other portion of that then what would be the incentive? And the incentive would be disruption. And now we kind of poked the bear earlier. I don't think that the bear meant to attack when it did. So what is coming up that they might national, right? And so well, no, it does, because if we lose faith in the local government because they've been hacked, even though we're doing it on paper, it doesn't matter. People are going to lose faith in the local government. So that was equipment for a clerk's office so that they could simply produce the ballots and go print them. So the printed paper doesn't have the virus on it. But so what is the incentive for this? Is it money? Is it disruption? Is it both? And I think that we may not be told specifically on ours, but I certainly see elements of disruption and simply covering tracks in ours.
And so just a follow-up question. So when you, in the discussion for later, when you look at your public services or data, outside your network service versus having that connected internally as smart meter because
And that's exactly one of the things that we're looking at going forward, where we've had real-time data to our in between, more segmentation. So when, not if, but when the external systems get hacked, we can shut them down quickly and bring them back up quickly, come them back up and keep going. But we are going to take a hit in real-time data, absolutely, going forward. I know Nate, you had a question.
I was just saying, what was the incentive for this? Answer that question.
I think so.
We're going to go ahead and have and I anticipate we're going to have 90 days from now is November 1st, and they're going to have a lot more lessons learned that we might be able to outline for them.
And I'm not going to be able to stay for the lunch discussion today. I'm going to get going a little bit early. But again, I'd be very happy to answer any additional questions and help you learn from our situation. And again, I will be available to you if I can help you at all. I would like to do that. And again, thank you for your help.
Thanks, Eric. For our 9 o'clock time slot, we have Muni is here, and we got a contingent in the back of the room, but we're going to share what I think has already been but about housing and homelessness and using the GIS to help mitigate some of that. So with that, I will hand it to you. So.
Hi, how's it going? I'm Amber Johnson. I'm one of the lead analysts with the municipality Anchorage GIS department.
I'm Melissa Jones with the Action Policing.
I am Sergeant Avery, and I'm the supervisor for the Community Action Policing.
I am Tanya Randall, and I work with the Mobile Intervention Team at the municipality.
And now, so a reminder, so we're streaming, so now we have all of your faces here. So
just a comment, if you're going to be talking or you're going to be up there, be over in that direction more than this direction, so we aren't just looking at the back of your head. There we go. Perfect.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you.
I guess I'll take the mic. Hey, thanks for having us here today, and what we're here to talk about is how we use the GIS program and how it came into our unit and made our life a whole lot easier. You know how officers are and police officers are. We hate change. We never want to do change. You know, when we hear about change, we always like, oh, you know, that just means more training, more this, more that. But this was a good change for us. It's actually made our unit a lot more productive and our life a lot easier. With the posting and the abatement of the illegal camps here in town, that's not only do we do the homeless abatement of these camps, but we deal with community-oriented policing. We do to if there's a problem in the day, they always seem to call the cab team because they'll get it done. So our job descriptions are pretty broad. I have 4 people in my unit besides myself, and one of the tedious things that we do is the illegal camps because, of course, it seems to never go away. It seems to be an issue that we deal with consistently all year long. And so the way we used to abate these camps is we would, before I became a supervisor of this unit, I was an officer in this unit. And so what I did was I go to work and we show up every day and we spend the first maybe 2-3 hours and we get a stack of paperwork like this about illegal camps and they want you to take care of it. And we look at this file and we're like, oh my goodness. You know, because it just wasn't one day, it was every day that we came into work 4 days a week, 10 hours a day type of deal, right? And so we'd have to sit down and we have to weed through all the stacks of paperwork to make sure there weren't duplicates of illegal camps that were being called in. So of course, not only one person would call in that camp, there'd be 10 people calling in the same camps. And then dispatch would just take the call and then put it in a pile and then give it to us, and we'd have to sit down and go through every single one of it. And then, of course, you know how some citizens are, a lot of people are directionally challenged a little bit, right? So our directions would be like, hey, you know, it's east of Tudor, west of Turpin, walk 10 feet, walk up to the stop sign, go 10 feet to the left, left or east or west, and we're like, oh my goodness, you know, and we walk around aimlessly for hours trying to find this location of this camp that people have called in, and what ends up happening is, you know, we're all tired from walking all day long, but the good news is, Officer Jones here has always got to get her 10,000 steps every day, right? So she's like, keep walking, keep walking. I'm like, oh, have you got your 10,000 steps yet? So we walk aimlessly trying to find these locations, these camps, and then eventually we then have to pick up the phone and call the complainant over and over again to see if they pick up the phone to ask them, okay, do you really mean left or do you really mean right? So if you're facing the stop sign, is it east or is it west? Are you facing the way, which way you're going, you know? So we'd have to clarify with them, and so it'd take us hours. I mean, it'd be we deal with these campers, we give them these 10-day abatements, tell them, well, back in the day it was 15 days. We gave them 15 days to get their stuff and to leave there, okay? And then we'd ask them to fill out this wonderful form that they came up called the HEART form, to kind of get information, get them some resources and things like that. So we're like, hey, this is actually kind of exciting. Something's going to be done, and we're not going to be dealing with the same individual over and over again. Because what we felt like we were doing back in the day was just displacing people, right? We were telling them, hey, you got to leave, fill out this form. We'll get you some help, we'll get you some housing, we'll see what we can do to help you out, and we convince them to fill out this form, and then we take it back to the station, and we fax it to this number that they gave us. Well, a few months later, we found out this fax number was like the black hole. We didn't know where it went, who got it, and when we encountered these individuals again, we're like, you're still here? Didn't somebody come see you? They're like, no, you guys are a bunch of liars, and you're wasting my time, and I'm not going to fill out another form. So it'd be like, wow, you know, what got us excited about maybe getting these people some help and getting them off the, you know, from the illegal camping wasn't happening. So then, come 2016, we came up with this GIS program. Tina, the wonderful person that she is, kind of made the system for us, and I'll let Officer Jones kind of talk about how, you know, we do it now, because let me tell you, we're a lot more productive with what we have now.
Okay, I think we jumped ahead, so we're gonna let. We're a new group working together on this presentation. Tina's in Florida, and Nancy's talking to the governor, which apparently like slightly above this. So these are the general stats with the housing right now in Anchorage. We do a point in time count every January. So you can see the housing ratio compared to other areas in the country and the state. We're beating a few, but can definitely improve. So the change has to come from the policy. So yeah.
So I am just coming off of a 2-week vacation, and I learned last night that I have to talk about the presentation that I haven't seen, so just bear with me while I read this slide, and then I will talk about it. So if you don't mind, I can just kind of chat about where I fit into the picture, and then if it matches the slide, that's just a bonus. So about 2 years ago, I worked for Anchorage Community Mental Health Services, and I was approached about a position working with CAP, embedded with their department, to kind of go out and provide outreach and connect our homeless community to resources, housing, and services. So that's where I fit in to the picture. And so I'm not super familiar with how it worked in the past with CAP and how they connected folks to resources, and I think Jen and Sally can talk more about that. But what we do now is we still complete the HEART form. Only I go out and I connect folks to services, so there's actually somebody that either goes out with the officers, or I can go out after if they've connected with somebody. And so instead of not having a face behind kind of the HEART form once they've completed it, there's somebody that can go out and do soft handoffs to other agencies, and they have a coordinated entry list for housing, and so that's one connection that we make for all of the folks. We try to get them on a housing list so that they can start working towards that. So, what's the next slide?
Okay, so Tina Miller took over the GIS program. You guys probably know better than I do. A few years ago, she came in and saw this paper map over in the corner. Part map, part weapon. Those are push pins that go all the way through, so you can attack people with it if you want, I guess. This is how Parks and Rec was keeping track of homeless camps. Somebody would call it in, they would guesstimate with a pin. If we police would have their stack of papers. You can see the nice paper list that they worked at. Tina saw this and knew that there could be a better way to do it. She knew that there had to be a work list, there had to be homeless, they had to do the point in time counts. There's a lot of different responses that can go on for the homeless camp, between just cleaning it up, if it's just tents, to the police response, to the outreach. So this kind of evolved. We do all of this using Esri and FME. We have a data flow that's been developed over the last 18 months, and it's been an ever-evolving process, from as simple as it went from a 15 to a 10-day abatement process, to if a camp is within 500 feet, when they report it, should it count as the same camp, or 200, playing with lots of little differences. We've automated emails to go all the way through as people's responses work their way through the system. We've changed those with the help of our outreach and PR department at the Muni. So we have it broken down from the camp work list that the APD works off of. We have a separate one for Parks and Rec who comes in and cleans it up after the abatement process. And this has all been automated now, and it's actually a map. It's on Collector. When they go out into the field, they actually get to see what's going on. When the public fills out a form, it's all online, and they can actually place the pin on the map. They can use GPS coordinates. There's lots of options for the public interacting with it. This is what the police officers have on their phone. It's a list of all the active camps in Anchorage. We also keep all the historic data, so when somebody's in the office and the mayor's office gets a call saying that I've reported this homeless camp 15 times and nothing's been done, they can actually look online and see the number of reports. They can see what work's been done here, there, and they have constant stats on what's happening. Then we took this a step further. It's required for the point in time count. This year, for the first time, it was all done with Collector as well. We took the areas that we knew there were homeless camps, we divided them up based on the number of camps that we historically knew were there, and we had volunteers go directly to the areas. We had data showing there was homeless camps. Then they were actually able to say where they collected the survey versus just filling out the old paper survey. So we started to develop another source of where people were in our community that needed help. So you can see here, this is all of the green dots. Those are all the public reports that have been cleared, as well as the camps. I want to say this is from this year so far. There's the heat map that we've used from old data. I think that heat map's a year old. But it gives us more of an option. It gives us a better picture. And it's still evolving. There's still work to be done. We get
Okay, so I have experience going to these camps. For example, give you a quick example. This is how much time it saved the new system has, because we just get it on the phone. And we see dots instead of seeing, Boston and Bedard, Tudor and Piper. For example, if somebody reported a camp at the Russian Jack, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It goes there, and then they say it's a Russian Jack by the Boniface entrance. By the time we walk, Boniface entrance, if it's 6 to bar, you're like, okay, where is it? So we would walk in, and it was very frustrating. With the new system, I look at them and I see my steps, but it was a lot easier to do. So what happened when I pushed the button, we post that camp, there's two things we do. One, we do the abatement saying you have to move. Two, we fill out a heart form if they're willing. We're not going to force anybody. But if they're willing to fill out a heart form, we fill it out, and we can actually pass it on to our social worker. Once that's done, once we say it's posted, it goes to community work service. Before, I had to call, I had to email and say, posted this camp on this day, it expires on this day, can you clean it up? Did I know you got it? Did they get my directions? I can be directly challenged myself. So that was an easier step. So if the flow of information is done, I can say, hey, it's on Russian Jack. I don't even have to tell her where, because she has that app herself. She can go, it's Sally posted this one, I can just walk to it. So active or inactive in trash. So basically, somebody can report trash. Before they report the old system, they were reporting trash. So I'd walk half a mile up Camel Creek, and I'm like, this is trash. This was never meant for us. we can look at the picture and go, okay, that goes to community work service. So it alleviates the dots on my app that we don't have to go. Easier. We can go and look at it and go, well, that looks like it. So that has been a time saver. So after this, my boss over here said, I need you to go post in camps. Before, I would have to go to the office and I would have to, figure out, okay, I'm going to work on the website today. What's in the website? Another hour of doing that. Now I can just look at the app, look at the dots, and go, oh, the website, there's, over here by Winnie's or wherever, I can go down there and do it. So the biggest thing about this is time saving, communication to community work service, and social outreach. So that's what has been the best thing on this.
And actually, with the system, this is exactly how the calls would come in. They used to come in like this, I mean, if you read it, 10 between Alder and Davenport, Ballfield, south of 20th, north of Cave Trail, from Alder to Aspen Drive to Cole. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, we would actually literally come in there and I'd look at Sally as an officer and be like, all right, I did it yesterday, yours. We would walk paper, scissors, and see who'd have to go through the pile of stuff, and then when we're walking, I'm like, we need to get smart about this, because sometimes it seems like we're doing circles around that same spot. I'm like, didn't we just walk by this tree? She goes, no, that's not the same tree. I'm like, no, it's the same tree. I don't think it's here, so with this system, of course, everybody's got that cell phone, right, and there's a GPS system, and so it makes life a lot easier, because they just pinpoint right where they're at, take a photo of it, and then download it when they report it online. And so we're able to get this. So with this new GIS system, it actually makes, we are working smarter, we're not working harder, because it makes our life a lot easier, and at the end of the day, we have more time to do the fun things like community policing, interacting with the community, and doing that part of our job, instead of having to sit down and do this all day long. And with the outreach that we have, it's been amazing, because the people we contact out there are people that deal with a lot of mental health issues and substance abuse problems, and it could be that day that we want to give them immediate outreach, and she's there to do that, and that saves them from us finding them in the woods again, 2 weeks from now in a different location, because that's what we end up doing. So it's been a great thing for us to have, and it ties everybody in, so we're not working as individual, areas. We're actually working together, because everybody has the same system. We can look at it and say, hey, now it holds everybody accountable. The police department has posted, community work service now has got to clean up, and then Tanya's got out there doing her outreach and making sure we try to get as many people off the streets as we can. And that's the program.
So you can see here the different options the police department has, and depending on what they select, it sends it different ways and gives them options on what actually is happening at the camps. And one of the recent things we added is a medical flag. So the fire department's now jumped on board, and they actually have EMS that if you flag it as medical will come out for medical assistance as well. So it is a constantly evolving process. You can see the active camps and Tanya participating in the outreach, which is great. It's been a really good process, and it's really fun to see how it's expanded.
That's a very big picture of things. So just tagging on to how the system evolves, and with what Amber was saying, there's actually 2 tags that I can use. So about a year ago, they took the position from Anchors for Mental Health, moved it in the community, because we realized that there was a much bigger community that needed help. And so 2 of the things that they were able to do with the system was add the medical component, so that for someone who has like diabetes or somebody who congestive heart failure, that they don't need an ambulance showing up to the woods every day to pick them up. They can have kind of someone come out and just check on them medically to kind of stop that, which helps with cost and just a lot of things. So to connect those folks to housing, so I could pinpoint that I've met John Smith, and he's not connected to housing but needs to be, and then that email goes directly to our coordinate entry folks, and they can try to find Mr. Smith and connect him to housing. And so that has been very helpful. We've gotten hundreds of folks that were never on the list are now getting on. I just want to say that this gentleman in the picture, about 3 months after this outreach, was folks that we very first outreached when the program kind of very first started.
So my real quick thing is, before when we used to back this up to the black hole, it's really frustrating because I never knew people ever got, help. He got housing, he got assistance. So it's good to hear on our point that when we fill this form out, something's actually happening. So it's rewarding to see that. Oh, and then I forgot to mention, this is very important because sometimes with the old system, not only did I have to have that stack of paper giving me directions, then I had to have the abatement, the hard form, and a camera walking around the woods with all this stuff. Now I can take a picture with the smartphone when I pin it, so that's very helpful as well. I don't have to carry a lot of stuff.
Awesome. So does anybody have any questions for any part of the process at all?
So the app, the entry app for anybody walking around, how do you find that app? Can you do it from a mobile phone? If I want to
their app?
Well, does it locate the citizen? Can a citizen report in right here?
Yes,
on
so
Anchorworks?
this is available on the municipal website under Anchorworks. It works on the mobile app, it works on a computer. It's using Geoform by Esri.
Okay.
We're a configure only shop, nothing that we've done is custom code. It's all plug and play.
And then the second thing, I know it came up a couple years ago. So as soon as the data points are made, obviously it's secure inside Muni only. Those points are available only to whom?
So we lock them down based on the data set and based on groups. So the police only see the police data, the Parks and Rec only see the Parks and Rec data. We restrict who can edit it, so the mayor's office can view, but they can't edit. So we have probably 5 different groups that are all based on the user and the permissions that person needs to make sure that everybody's getting the correct access and not too much, because it is sensitive data.
And actually with the system too, it's actually kind of nice because not only does it when we address the dots, once we address the illegal camp, it sends an email back to the complainant that actually initially reported that camp to say, hey, police department is taking care of this camp, so we don't have to make that phone call again. To say, hey, it's been posted, but they'll see that it's been posted and it's been addressed, so they don't have to report it again.
Yeah.
Has anyone done like a cost-effective analysis from what you were doing before to what it is now? Because just to pitch it to other organizations like this it seems like it would help so many others. Because of course Esri is that package is
well, I think
it can cost, but if you show this is how much we save from here to there.
Yeah, we haven't done the numbers yet, but I think we're saving a whole lot more than what we used to. And when we do these presentations, I think a lot of the different organizations are kind of like, wow, that's actually a pretty smart idea. And so they'll reach out to us and we'll kind of sit down and lead them to the right person. Tina, usually we send to Tina. She's way smarter than we are. Talk to her, we just pick things up and put things down. I tell her, they're like, no. So basically, she's the one we go to. But I think a lot of departments that we've gone when we've done these presentations have really shown an interest in being able to use this GIS system and do the same thing we're doing in their departments.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to add that on the next presentation, and I'm going to show how to do this in 5 minutes.
Just not homeless camps.
Not
Is anybody here from the Valley, the Matsu area? Yeah, a lot of you.
Great.
Awesome, thank you. If you guys have questions,
Yeah, if you recall, Tina was here at this place a year ago presenting about the overall TIS platform. So it's great to see I think we were talking about this last year, but to kind of see it in action. And actually Amber presented, I'm going to say last January, right, on a lot of the inner workings of GIS, if I recall. So, when the Smart Communities website, remind me, is that public facing so that I haven't checked the site. Is that up?
That's not up. No.
That's not up, yeah. So some of the Matsu external sites are up, but hopefully we can get those documents. Actually, I know because guess who has the data store? So I have the data that goes to the old documents, old presentations are available at the Alaska Communities, Smart Communities website. All right, so next we have Aaron is going to talk. I guess, Aaron, it's really the survey 1, 2, 3. Is that right?
Yep.
Are connected in, so just hit the browser.
Oh, you told me this wrong. Okay.
And just make sure you get close to the microphone.
Up here? Speak loud enough, make sure they can hear us in the other room. Huh?
Exactly, on the streaming.
So, my name's Aaron Butterer, this is Nicole Kelleher, and we're with the Alaska Railroad, and I think this worked out well after seeing what the Muni's doing with their Survey 1, 2, 3 stuff, that I'm going to talk about how we're using Survey 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to spend the second half of the 20 minutes or so talking about how to do it, rather than just showing it. So, go ahead. So the railroad had a problem. The railroad's problem, the railroad's problem is that it was a 100-year-old organization doing things the same way they did it 100 years ago. They have lots of paper forms. Oh, I'm sorry. If anybody's interested, we're going to be able to, if you want to download the Survey 123 app for your phone, at the end of this, we're going to be able to submit surveys. You can do it through a mobile browser as well if you want, but if you want to see how the Survey 123 app works, I'm going to have a public survey that we can all see at the end, and we'll fill it out and see what the data results look like. So as I was saying, the railroad had a problem that it was a 100-year-old organization doing things the same way 100 years later. They have to go out there and maintain the track every year, and when they do that, they've got paper forms that they fill out. And they have lots of paper forms. We've got vehicle inspections, we've got all sorts of stuff. And you can figure the railroad's got about 500 employees and about 100 personal pickup trucks that the company owns. And before any time anybody uses broken. So you can figure 500 people, 100 vehicles. How many times a week do you think that form gets filled out? And so the lady that's in charge of fleet vehicles gets in her inbox 40 of these forms, something like that, every day. What do you think she does with 40 forms every day? That a full 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that has maybe 60 lines. Every day. She would have to spend her entire day just entering that data. So everybody goes and spends their time filling this out, and then they do nothing with it. So we were looking at it. So go ahead, Nicole, why don't we advance it a little further here. Keep going through this. So I was approached, let's go a little further still. So there you go. So I was approached by the superintendent of maintenance, and he had told me a story about he went to go talk with the IT guys and said, hey, I want to get my guys out in the field doing stuff on the smartphone. And he wants to change. He wants to say, we've been doing it the old way for too long. Let's go ahead and move on and try and do this the new way now. So go ahead to the next one here. So this was IT. They said, we've never done this before. We don't know how to do it. We're busy as it is, so I'm going to need you to give me $50,000 to design this field app. The answer was just to scare them away. He didn't give any thought into what it was actually going to take. He just said, this is what it's going to take, go away. So he was complaining to me, and I said, well, what if it doesn't take $50,000, and what if it doesn't take 6 months? I said, is that something you would be interested in? And he said, yeah, if you could do this for me for not 60 grand and not 6 months, that would be something I'm interested in. So, go ahead, Nicole. So, I developed a prototype for him. We sat down in his office in the morning, and he told me what he wanted to do, and he said, here's this form, this is what they're doing out in the field, this is the piece of paper, I want this in a digital version. So I said, okay, and then I went back to my office. And then I came down to his desk 2 hours later and said, hey, what do you think about this? And he said, yeah, that's exactly what I need. So, but I want you to make some changes. Let's do it this way, let's do it this way. So I went back and made changes, came back half an hour later. Changes were made. He said, oh yeah, but now I want to do this. And so after about the fourth time of going up to my office, I said, look, here's the deal. Here's what I'm going to show you. This is so easy that you can do it. And he said, I don't believe you. So I said, here, let me show you. And so let's scroll ahead a little bit here. Maybe this is a good point to me to get to showing some stuff. So here we go. Here's how we do it. We create a new survey. We tell them we want to use the web designer or Connect. Connect is an Excel-based thing. It has more functionality. It's a little more complicated. So we just say yesterday. So we'll just go into here and see what the web form looks like. So I added a couple of questions here. So we've got your name. What do you feel about these quarterly meetings? I just took this off of a Q&A thing that we had done from a couple of meetings back. So I want to show you how to do this. So if we want to give somebody a line of text, there we go. Do that. Now we can take our question and you can give a hint. There you go. And that's how you do it. You just drag and drop. You got here, you got all sorts of different stuff. There are all the different types of buttons you can add. You can add an image, so you can use your phone and take a picture like they were talking about. You've got a signature line. You can get a point that'll take the GPS location from your phone. So it's saved. We can preview it if we want to see what it looks like, but I don't care what it looks like. We're just going to publish it. So I'll publish. And it'll take a minute, and then once this is published, we'll be able to go and bring it up in our phone. And that's how difficult it is to make a survey through Survey 123. And he said, yeah, I think I can probably figure that part out. Okay, there we go. Over this Collaborate tab here, we can see that it's shared with everyone. So if anyone wants to plug this URL into their phone's browser, sorry, wait a minute. This URL, the URL is case sensitive, and if you've got the survey app installed, it's in the browser. So I will go and open it as well, and we'll see. So here we go. It says in the app or in the browser. And the app is also available for the desktop. So in addition to being able to do it mobile, you can get the same experience through the browser as a separate standalone installed program. So here we go. Here's the survey. Nicole, why don't you fill out the survey and tell everybody what you think. Remember, everybody can see what you're writing. So she's going to put her name. She's going to see how, she must, this is her first meeting, and she must be enjoying herself. So this was in response to, we were having a discussion about what skills we need. So it's a drop-down box. So what skills do you think most GIS people that you're lacking? Okay, and then, so we've got here, what training are we using? Just, there we go. And then there's the question that we just added just a minute ago. So we'll go ahead there. And she left it blank. Mary's still playing on her phone.
I didn't get the
URL?
link fast enough.
Okay. give me a raise of the hand when you're done with the URL. Good? We're good with the URL? Okay. So, we're showing how to create, edit, gives you the confirmation here. So, there we go. So that was how we did it. And so, when I showed him how to do that, rather than me having to do this, I started and I had made just 1 or 2 maps, 1 or 2 surveys. And then, I swear, this was Thursday, I come in Monday morning and there was 20 surveys that had popped up here. I had made 2 of these. And it became 20 overnight, it seemed like. And so he went and he ran with it. And this is not a GIS guy. This is the superintendent of maintenance who's been at the railroad 20 years, has never used GIS other than the web portal I had made for him. And then he said, you know, I've got all these guys out in the field submitting this survey data. What if I could have a map that shows all this information for me? And this is an app, I'm going to show you the map that he did on his own with no prompting from me. He just went in there and said, okay, I've got the surveys, I've got access to ArcGIS on. So, and this is something he had built to go and show what maintenance is doing. And he was on vacation. I was just talking to him about this yesterday. He was on vacation all last week. And he wanted to come back in and see what his guys had done. And he said because of this map, he was able to go, and in 20 minutes, he was able to look through and fill out in the field. So he doesn't have to do anything to keep this map updated. It's feeding the data in real time to him. And then he can look and see here, and if we zoom in the text, he's not real good at making maps, but it works for him. So we can see here that they've dumped some material, but they haven't gotten to go and clean up the material yet. So, you know, the railroad ties sit on rock ballast, and so they have to maintain that every year. So they drop the ballast, and then they come by and clean it all up. So he made this map for himself, and he said, I asked him, you know, before this web map, what would you have done after you got back from vacation to check and make sure your guys did it? And he said, I couldn't have before. I would have just had to assume that they did it right, and I would have no clue where they were at. And now he said he was able to go and in 20 minutes see what all of his guys did for the week he was gone. So we got the map, and then it turned into the web map, and then he took it in further and turned it into dashboards. So I created a dashboard. These other 2 are from him, and we can see here. You can see here, this is a map, and this tracks how much of that ballast has been cleaned up so far. And so we've got the dates down on the bottom, the amount of linear feet, and so we've got a web map in here. And so he's using this to track and see how much production his guys are doing over the course of the day. And then he said this one's the good one. This one shows how much of the track has been resurfaced. And he said what this has really come into a benefit is these buttons on the side here. He can look at what each surfacing gang is doing and compare the surfacing gang between the other ones. And he's got this so that the surfacing gang leaders can see it too. So there's now a competition between the guys to say, wait a minute, why are those guys doing better than we are? So we went and we filled out this survey. So let's go and look at some of the data and see if anybody else filled it out while we were here. Okay, look here, look at all those. So we got a bunch of people signed, filled it in. Everybody seems to think that this is good, except for one person here.
The outlier.
There's always one. Always one.
And so we can see here that what response is that everybody seemed to think. So that's good. We can see all that. So I wonder who that one guy was.
No.
So now I'm going to call you out. You guys worried yet? So we'll sort them here. Oh, here's the. Oh, it was somebody named Grumpy. So, and we can see on the web map here where these responses are coming from. So this is out in the middle of the ocean, and that was because it was filled out through an internet browser instead of using the mobile app. Let's see here.
little difficult on the touchpad, but we can see. So it was out in the middle of the ocean because that's the intersection of the prime meridian and the equator. But we can see here, well, a lot of responses came from Anchorage. And so this down here, this is us now, this is me at the office this morning. So, what did we learn? First we learned I lied. I told him it wasn't going to cost anything, and it does. It costs money, but it's really not expensive. It's not 50 grand. It didn't take 6 months. If you've got Arcgis, your Arcgis online account, and so you've already got that portion of it to get started. If you want to make it public, you saw I was able to make it public. We were all able to do it. If you want to make it private, then you need an account for each person that's going to be submitting the surveys. And I believe those are $500 per user. You need to have the higher level 2 user for Arcgis Online. But, so, it does cost money. And I've had to add, I think, probably 10 users, and there's been no complaints about adding any of the users because they see the functionality. So it did cost money. But we talk back to those vehicle inspection forms that everybody has to do. And the part I didn't tell you about those is they spend $72,000 a year printing those forms. So if we can stop printing those forms and use this, and it only costs $15,000 to add users, have I really cost the railroad any money? No, I've saved them $40,000. I was talking with Lloyd. He was talking about this. He had one of the crews out there, and he was looking at where they were dumping the ballast. And he saw where they dumped one of the ballast in one of the wrong locations. It had just gotten ballast dumped there a week before, but they had still dumped it there. And because he was able to see the app in real time, he was able to say, guys, you dumped it in the wrong spot. Go pick that up. Last year, if that would have happened, he would have gotten the reports at the end of the season, and he said, oh, that sucks. You dropped ballast twice in the same spot. So if we can just do a couple things like that, if you can spend some time, we were talking earlier with the homelessness and how it's saving them time. So yeah, maybe it costs a little bit of outlay to get started on this, but you saw we can develop that survey. What did that take me, 2 minutes? 3 minutes, you can go and get a basic survey done that kind of meets a lot of your needs. So there's not, the investment is not huge. And one of the biggest things this did for me was it gave me some credibility. It gave people in the boardroom reason to talk about me. And I like people in the boardroom talking good stuff about me. So, next, when I'm up there and I'm asking for money to do GIS stuff next time, I can look back and say, hey guys, go ask Lloyd how he feels about the investment we made in his GIS technology. So with that, that's all I've got. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to let Nicole answer them all. Well, everybody's good?
I just have a question. So as a public entity, do people use their personal devices or a tablet, or how do the people in the field and different workforces, how do you?
So it's a mix. It's we have some company tablets, we have some company cell phones. Some people are using their personal cell phones. It's it's not device specific. As we showed, you can download the device for your phone. It's got Android, it's got Apple. There's the desktop version if your tablet's running Windows. So there's lots of different versions. So you're not really down to a device, and it can even go through the web browser. So really, it doesn't really matter to us how they connect to it. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you guys.
Well, with that, may I just maybe take 10 minutes or so and grab your coffee or some snacks, and then guess what? Ezra is going to I don't know of a better lead-in. So.
Nice job. So, How many Gandhi dancers does the radio Rebel
I don't know. I make them their own apps, they can figure that out.
Well, I asked that because I'm guessing in this room I'm the only one that has been a Gandhi dancer.
I don't even know what it is. I work for the radio.
Oh, you don't?
Yeah.
Oh, wasn't it? You're new?
Yeah.
Okay, let me tell you. Next time you go back and ask if anyone on the crew, because a Gandhi dancer, that whole picture you have, that's what Gandhi dancers were. So when I was did the beds, gravel. I spent, I think, 2 summers when I was in school on a railroad construction project back in my home state, and it was at that point that I learned I was a Gandhi dancer.
I would guess that we probably got about 15.
Yeah.
I guess, probably 35 man crew or something.
But it's an interesting piece. So I leave that. Okay, wait a second. Just make sure it's all over now. Yes. So, thing that Anchorage has for those active camps. Oh, so I'll be able to go on that and find an active camp. We take our home, put them in Tennessee.
Yes.
No longer do I just take them to the border and then we can take them right to place where they can pitch their own tent. Well, the interesting, I think
All right, everybody. So everyone's seating, okay, so that's great. And then, so for the next, maybe 45 minutes or so, some Q&A, is Esri. And then following that, real quickly, is MTA. Quick little footnote. So Esri, I'm pleased to have them fund and sponsor lunch today. So Esri has done that. So thank you for that. And to the MTA table, so as a reminder, so they did fund our meals last event. And so I wanted to make sure I was able to bring them and have a platform to discuss all their current projects and scope of services currently with us today as well. So again, thank you for that. All right, so with that, I'm going to hand this over.
Thank you. I'm going to put this up here. There's too many things in my hands here. And I don't think I'm as loud to not use the mic, so we'll see how that goes.
And Mike, can you tell if it's picking up?
I will.
Okay.
I will check this.
Is that okay? Can everybody hear me okay? All right, perfect. Well, thank you for having me. I'm actually really excited to be here today. It's my first time in Anchorage. I think I've been here all of 12 hours. I got in pretty late last night. Shared your agendas from your last meetings, and it's really kind of interesting to see the work that you all are doing here. I almost maybe don't have to do my presentation because of the last two that kind of we went through this morning were really, really exciting. You know, for us, that's what gets us excited. We talk about technology and all of that, but I think it's really what it comes down to and how it's being used to solve real world challenges is the exciting stuff for us. So let's see. So I had a few things, kind of big bucket topics that I wanted to cover. And because the first one was just the title of the presentation, kind of being the science of where and what does that mean? I think you may have started to see kind of that branding from Esri and what do we mean when we say that. I think it gives us a foundation kind of to have the other two. We just are coming out of our user conference. We had 18,000 people in San Diego in early July. And kind of taking a few of the highlights out of that conference. That gets a little bit more product-y, but just for kind of the GIS users out there, not to go into depth, but just kind of touching on some kind of key things that we covered at the user conference. So the first one, I think, you know, when we talk about the science of where and what that means, kind of a big theme of our conference was what's next. We have a kind of a motto every year, kind of a statement, and kind of to ponder and think about the conference. And for us, it was kind of what is next, right? How do we take what we're doing and kind of apply it to kind of the world that we see? How can we start to understand the interdependencies and the sciences between those things? Right? We look at how GIS is used to apply to kind of make some understanding of that. You know, when we talk about that science, it really is understanding kind of these interdependent relationships between kind of both that physical world, the human world, and the natural world, right? How do we make sense of it to help us move forward and, you know, do things in the world that are things like solving homelessness or working on kind of polio vaccinations in Africa or, you know, coastal flooding in certain parts of the country and climate change, right? These are all of the kind of interdependencies that we see, and how do we take GIS and geography to apply it to that? So that's when we kind of think about what is the science of where really. Conceptual science, right? But science is a process and it's a framework for how do we integrate and really work through that. So, you know, if we kind of start at the top left, right? We collect data, lots of data, we'll talk about data in a little bit, but, you know, leveraging this framework to understand, we have lots of data, but then how do we do something with it? Because that's actually where it gets more exciting, right? How do we analyze it, leverage it to understand kind of how we can use that to collaborate together, right? To take action. Data's great, information's great, understanding it's great, but really how do we apply that together in between each other, right? We heard a lot about collaboration this morning of people that need different parts of information to help them make decisions, and all that coming together can really help you advance and take action on a specific item. We talk a lot about GIS, and I think probably a lot of you, right, people I talk to, think about GIS as this power user technology, right? You have to be this GIS person, and I've had people tell me it's like a secret handshake club, and you have to, only those GIS people over there know how to do this stuff. And this framework, the science of where, is not just GIS. It's expanding into basic mapping, right? A lot of the examples we saw today, we do typically think of a police officer as a GIS professional, right? We do think about a maintenance worker out and if doing inspections on a railroad track is being a GIS professional, right? So they're doing mapping, they're doing basic asset collection or inventorying. How do you take the technology to apply to the job that they do in the way that they need it? So that's also a big focus of us for kind of our work is not the GIS side only. It's how do we expand and kind of help our users with even just basic mapping. Another concept you'll hear a lot about from us, and kind of it helps facilitate all of those kind of capabilities to happen, is what we call web GIS. It really is a service-oriented architecture, right, that allows us to scale and provide kind of information to teams and organizations and departments in a way that they need it, not data having to be moved all over the place, right, every time that you need it. But it also facilitates that sharing and collaboration. So we say where sharing and collaboration is really important, you also need the technology components to help get you there. So that's all foundational stuff, right? That's just kind of conceptual, higher level. There's technology out there that can help us do things. There's advancements in technology that allows us to do things. I think for me it gets much more exciting when we start to think about some of the trends and what are we seeing kind of across our users. I'm lucky enough, I lead our state government team at Esri, so I'm lucky enough to GIS. I started at Esri 26 years ago when people would call us and it was, okay, if you want to do some GIS stuff, then you have to create data, right? If you have to train your people. To get started to actually use geographic information, it was starting from scratch. We don't have that anymore, right? We are lucky to be kind of where we are now, that data is so rich. But how do you maximize that data, right? I was kind of thinking through some of the, kind of with a couple users, how much do they spend on data a year, right? And this was a really hard question. I actually did a lot of research as well, like on the web, to see like what do cities or what do states or departments, what do people spend on data a year? And it's, right, we buy data, right? You may buy street data, you might buy LiDAR data, right? Think about all those projects your organization's funding to procure kind of commercial data. You also create data. You have people in your departments every day updating information. They are managing it, you're putting it on servers, you're buying additional database technology, right? All of this goes in. Right? I don't know that anybody can really truly answer kind of that question. It's a hard question. But, I think as we chatted a few minutes ago about kind of data and the importance of it all, it really truly is only beneficial when we do something with it. And I think this is it's an interesting kind of place in our technology is if we think about that concept of GIS people and then kind of people using it for mapping and visualization and being able to expose data beyond just kind of our core power user community, we start to realize the value of that because you're really kind of taking advantage of all of that data and using it in a way that's most effective for your organization. So people can kind of go back and figure out how do I take action or what is my role in that kind of science of where framework, right? Do I collect data? Do I manage data? Do I analyze it? But understanding that it's more about than collecting it. It's about how do you get it to the people kind of in that continuum to be able to use it in the way that they need to. This was a quote that I found in that research I was doing to try to figure out kind of where are people spending on data. This was a quote from NASCIO. It was a white paper that the National States CIO community did. And, I think it really kind of intersected with kind of that thought of how do we take all this information, all this data, and all the costs that we put into it and get a magnitude more benefit on that spend to realize how we can benefit from it. So this all intersects with some of that foundational work that we were talking about of how do we now take it and get it into the hands of people in the way that they need it.
So now ask yourself kind of another question beyond just what kind of you spend on data, but does everybody in your organization have access to the data they need to do the job that they need to do it, right? You say a lot of individuals have access to data, right? You one-on-one, you go and you have access, you know where your pointers are and kind of what you need to do your job. But are your teams collaborating? Maybe that's more a little bit of easier, right? If they think of teams collaborating, people in smaller teams are sharing data, you may know where that is. Do your departments share data between each other, right? Do full departments have information access? And you take that to your whole organization. Does everybody in your organization have what they need, right? In the way they need it to do their that we're seeing. If we look at that from a GIS perspective, we start to think about, well, we're more than just GIS as well. Everything that we do is not just kind of spatial data sitting in an Esri GIS database, right? There's lots of spatial type information that's available across your organization. And that, it simplifies, though, if we think about that web services architecture, right, web GIS, think about all of these as just access to different points of information that you can pull in a way to be able to do your job. So that's great. I can think about this architecture to be able to support me and get access to the data that I need. But you take the next step to say, how do I then get it into the people's hands to do it the way that they need? And we heard the great example from the field apps. Right? Field apps have been really interesting for us, not to kind of go up on the side, has kind of gained such momentum and traction the way that the field apps have opened it up to the non-traditional GIS users. I think as we saw that, Aaron went through to be able to show a director of maintenance how to build a form that they can go out and collect spatial data without being a GIS professional was unheard of. And we're seeing that across all markets, across all spaces. DNRs, I think Michigan DNR has 500 field workers that they spun up within weeks, right? That was unheard of in the past to be able to go out and do field inspections across the board. Executive leadership. We work with a lot of executives in a department or a division, but also I have an example later on with the governor of Hawaii that understands kind of spatial information and how it can, show his success against his initiatives and priorities. These start to get really interesting because, right? It's just a way to get people information in the way that they need it to do their job, right? So, kind of that first trend has been really exciting because you start to see how do you take that value of the information. Right? Your data is so critical. I mean, I think as you saw in Matthew, not having access to that data in a short period of time gets, hinders your ability to do certain work. You have access to the data, but now are we using it, right? So some of the capabilities in that trend in technology is to kind of looking at not just building big systems to do these things, but how can I quickly empower, right, through this apps approach as well, people to have access to the tools. So it's kind of been the first kind of major trend that we're seeing kind of across city and state government, across our private organizations as well. We're seeing a lot in the utility space as well. So, we talked about data, all this stuff, right? We can get it out to the right people. The other kind of trend is this kind of configure versus customize approach to doing kind of work, right? I can't tell you how many times I watch parcel viewers get built across kind of the country at $50,000 or $75,000 kind of a time anyone wanted to go build it. Probably a lot what they saw at Railroad of, I need to build an app, it's a field app, it's going to go cost $50,000 to build those things. Having data and information is only that powerful if you can use it, right? So an area that we've been focused on a lot is that user experience and how can users quickly grab kind of applications and solutions that you can apply and kind of hydrate it with your own data and information. So, has anybody heard of ArcGIS for government solutions? Is anybody using them? You? They were. They will be again. So what Esri has done is realize that path to success can't take that long. We also can't have people There's a kind of a few reasons. One, the path of success can't take that long. I think the second kind of reason for us developing these kind of solution templates is that we had a lot of people that build kind of very custom applications to do key things that everybody else is doing those same things, but then they get version locked. So because that application was so hard-coded and customized, that as we had a release and they wanted to take advantage of new functionality, they were stuck because that application that was built, whether internally or externally, or somebody, then had to be upgraded so they could use the new versions. I think the other piece that we saw is that people were kind of paying for the same thing over and over again. So for those kind of common denominator applications, and I'll show you kind of what those are, we went through for not just state and local, but for the utility sector, for emergency management, for our military customers, and said, what are those key workflows that Esri could build a template for that could help those has the same key workflows in emergency management. Everybody thinks they do them a little different, but our templates were built with users to be able to, this wasn't an Esri management. We worked with an emergency management agency, multiple agencies, and practices in our, like us supporting emergency management events in the field to build what are those 4 sets of applications per se. So we did that across the board in all of them. The other thing to highlight here, I don't go into too many more slides on the basics of the solutions, but they are all open sourced code. You can get them on GitHub. Every single one of them is available. They're all fully supported. So any application that you'll find in those state government or local government or any of the solutions, you can call Esri tech support for. And as we have new versions, those are all upgraded. User you're trying to empower, take a look, see if there's a solution there to get you started. Deploy it. It might not meet 100% of your needs. Get feedback from the user and then kind of configure and reiterate from there. We'll never build the perfect app for everybody, and kind of getting something in someone's hands has been another trend that we're seeing. Is just let somebody get started and then iterate as kind of needs need to change. So what are these things, right? So in local government, we bucket these, and a way to organize them is around kind of different departments we work with. And from there, we look at what problem we're trying to solve, right? So if we look at public health, gosh, I didn't bring my glasses up here. I should have brought my glasses up here. Or in public works, right? Inventory right-of-way assets, right? Every public works department has to do an inventory of right-of-way assets. Every planning department has to kind of engage with the public. They have to manage community events, right? These are things that are consistent across every local government, across all states, and across the globe, right? A lot of these apply kind of globally as well. But then for every single one of those key kind of business focus areas that we work with, the white kind of that you listed is we talked about managing right-of-way applications. We have 6 different templates that you can use for kind of a collection of applications that help you achieve kind of managing your right-of-way activities for a public works department. And you can bring your glasses like me here, right? And we have right-of-way permits, a permit manager, a permit dashboard, right? So we think about the types of users in that workflow that would be kind of working through those things. Dashboard, you might have higher level leadership executives, maybe some of your team managers. Permit review process, a permit locator, and public comment. So they're meant to be kind of deployed in a series of a collection of applications that help you solve kind of in the darker gray those key business challenges that a department is doing. I think the other thing to think about for some of these is that although an application was built for a very specific department to do kind of a handful of kind of business tasks, those applications could also be applied to a different department. You might be trying to do well, maybe our Park Finder application just filled with different data can help you kind of put a Finder app for community events, right? So they look at these applications, I think, in their context and maybe how you apply to your business, but also to think about, hey, you know what, maybe one's not listed here, but if I do a little digging, there may be one that I could kind of morph into an application that I'm looking for. The other kind of piece is that we kind of break out for state government as well. Local and state government can definitely be combined together. There's really no easy way to organize these in a way that it communicates it to you because they are so kind of vertically focused but also horizontally focused. So, state government, we also organize by the key departments in state government. We're adding more and more. This year, we added a whole collection of agriculture solutions because that community from State Department of Agriculture were giving us feedback that, hey, you know what, we need to do plant inspections and invasive surveys here. Well, we're hearing that in Florida, we're hearing that in Maryland, we're hearing that everywhere. Why are we kind of working with them all independently? Why don't we work together with a handful of them and come out with a handful of templates that would allow them to quickly do that? So that's how they kind of spin up, but always check back because there's more and more coming. But it's the same kind of process. We look at kind of what are the key business workflows that we're trying to solve, and then what are those collection of applications that help you achieve that. I think, Terry, you brought posters for all of these as well in the back?
You guys might remember Eric showed us the poster of the very first Smart Communities Forum, but that's what this white thing is back here. So if you're having a hard time reading the board, you can grab one of these and take it and find your own spot on the map. So that's the updates. They're back here.
And these solutions are very community driven. So if there's feedback that you have on any of these, like, you know, this is a very silly workflow, I don't know why it behaves this way. Any of those things feed us back. If you see some that are ones that seem obvious, or have you thought of this, or hey, if you had one more application in, you know, how we engage with the public in natural resources, you know, we're always doing this, give those to us as our feedback because that's how we kind of put additional ones in the queue. We have a whole team at Esri of lots of people that it's their day job to kind of work with customers in how they are using our technology and understand how they can kind of come back and implement against our solution. So this really kind of gets to that. We have all that data, we have all this information. How do we kind of quickly be able to deploy and get out to those non-GIS professionals? Then I won't go into too much detail here, but we also we break out a whole series on emergency management. We've spent a lot of time with our emergency management agencies over kind of natural disaster events that have happened around the country. We have a program at Esri that is our disaster response program. If you've never heard of it, if there's an event, you can get additional resources and support or software licenses to help you respond to that event at no charge. We've had that for a very long time, but we've been able to kind of really understand those key workflows of emergency response agencies. They all do the exact same thing. They might do it a little different, their data might be structured a little different, but they all have kind of the 5 key operational areas that they work through during an event. Same key workflows. Why are we all kind of recreating those and doing them kind of different? If you have a tweak, kind of starting with some of these templates and then, you know, modifying that, right, to meet your agency's specific need, but these are a great place to start. It's actually interesting, in Texas for the hurricanes last year, we've been talking about these solutions with them, and we've had this conversation, so I'm not talking kind of out of turn here, but you know, they were hesitant for a very long time about deploying the solutions because they thought they were very different, right? That, well, we do it this way, we have this process, we do it that way. They went kind of through a long study to understand how and what they needed to implement in order to be kind of operational ready and be able to respond to an event. Well, hurricanes don't wait till you're ready, unfortunately, and in their case, they had no idea even the magnitude of the hurricane that they were going to get last year. And they called Esri and said, hey, can you help us? We're a few days away from this hurricane coming and we need a solution. We went in with their team and implemented every single one of these solutions over the course of a couple of days, stood up an Arcgis online organization for them, and they were able to quickly be able to respond to kind of the hurricanes in a way that they wouldn't need to. So now they're looking at, okay, we got started with something, we learned a lot during the event, now how do we go back and just reiterate kind of on some of these? Well, it would have been nice if this did it a little different or that did a little different, but it got them that starting point. It was actually a really interesting experience. It puts all this talk that we say that this stuff is kind of easy and you can quickly deploy these things to the real test when you have a big hurricane coming. It's a whole bunch of examples, I think, of people that have implemented these solutions, not to go in kind of everyone, but we have a lot of focus on the environmental screening area. That's been kind of one of the solution workflows that have kind of got quick traction. There's a couple others I can't pick off the top of my head, but if if you ever want any examples or others that are doing this, just let us know. We can share some of those with you and connect you to other users. We have had an interesting community around the agriculture example I shared for pest inspections. It's a state to federal reporting requirement, and the states have kind of got together to understand how do we do this process easier, because they all had people out in the field doing work with paper, trying to translate the information the same way that the police were about the location of things, and then be able to report successfully. So that's actually, it's been a really fun one. So we kind of shift gears a little bit from the solutions side of things, right? All of those are there and available for you to get going pretty quickly. But we also have kind of a whole handful of applications that you can quickly take and run with. I don't think I need to go too further with that, just because of Aaron's kind of nice demo here this morning, right? His example of setting up Survey 123 and setting up that form was what we see as kind of a no code, right? So we were hearing a lot back from our users about form, I would say. But then the other side is kind of the low code example. So, you know, it's not something that you want to do super kind of custom. We have, where's the second step? Where do you go next? And this is that second step, right? So you go from that no to low code. We have a whole bunch of kind of web app templates that can help you quickly implement kind of the look and the feel of your site, kind of adding widgets, right, to a web page so that you can configure functionality. Web app builder, has anybody used web app builder here? Handful? It's, that's another one of those technologies that have gone kind of crazy. It's that kind of easy to use interface, almost kind of a little bit deeper than the forms-based approach that you saw Aaron go through, but for configuring a web application. Has widgets or functionality that you can kind of quickly pull and drag and drop into an interface to allow you to kind of build a web application really quick. I was meeting with Oklahoma DOT recently, and they were saying how that if they went from kind of a goal to be able to empower lots of other builder applications over the course of 2 weeks, right? So then if that was their approach in that case, and they could reuse kind of the base of applications. So if you do web application development and Esri technology, take a look at Web App Builder, because it's really easy to use and gives you that ability to deploy applications pretty quickly. And then we also have another technology as well. It's called App Studio. Oh, Aaron?
I just wanted to mention, when I showed that web app that the superintendent of maintenance was using to track all of his work, that was something he built in Web App Builder.
Oh, okay, great.
I would go further. I don't think Web App Builder is low code. I think Web App Builder is no code. It's almost drag and drop, just like I showed the Survey 123.
Yeah, it's pretty easy, and I think the power, you know, is also pretty exciting, because you don't have to be that detailed web developer, right? And you know, as I think as we work with users, sometimes it's hard to get, you know, IT groups to build things for, you know, the different business areas, kind of the waiting in a queue, right? Because all of the departments are feeding into those IT groups for support. You know, to be able to uplift, kind of keep the heavy stuff with the IT, and to be able to kind of quickly deploy kind of these easier applications, right? App Studio is the only one I mentioned. If you want native applications on a device, say on an Android or an iOS, that the App Studio is another kind of configuration environment, much like the Web App Builder, but allows it to be kind of compiled for a native device. So if that functionality is a desire, that's an option for you. To go all the way to the last step here, you know, we have no code, low code, but then if you are a developer, and for the developers within your organizations, Esri does put a lot of focus back into kind of our APIs and SDKs, right? So kind of for all these environments, but know that they're available and accessible at developers.arcgis.com. There's also a lot of sample code and scripts and stuff that you can take to get started. So if you're kind of working with developers in your organization, and you're kind of working with them on GIS work, it's a good place for kind of that community. think the, kind of switching out of that a little bit to think about now, citizen engagement is kind of a trend, is they communicate with citizens, and our citizens are expecting a different, I think, more of a level of communication in a lot of ways. I think we've been seeing that trend kind of being fed back to Esri. But I think we have a variety of ways that we can do that. One of them is a story map. Some of it is just we want to communicate and tell a story to people. It could be around a permitting site that, is contentious, and you want to be able to share with the community what's happening. It could be around a emergency or a resilient city. There's a whole bunch of kind of examples here where the Governor of Hawaii example is on the left, that he's just trying to communicate how he's doing against his priorities that he had set out when he was being elected. Homelessness was one of the ones that were on his list as well. So you can go in here, see maps, get information about every single kind of policy. There's links to videos and story maps. It can be images. A story map for us is it's a way to integrate cleanly with our web maps, right, and be able to incorporate interactive maps in think about it as almost like a PowerPoint-y way. But a story map is not GIS technology. It just so happens it allows you to pull in some mapping in an interactive way to do that. Also a lot around kind of resiliency. Our city's kind of focusing on resilience. We start to see some states looking at resiliency maps, but story maps are just a nice way to be able to communicate out to the public in an easy, kind of ingestible way. If we kind of take that to the next step, right, how else do you communicate with citizens? Right, we all, I think, does everybody have any like interactive mapping on your websites? I know most of you do because I saw them before I came. There might be one up in the top left here.
That's still up.
It's still up. I went there yesterday. So, but there was, I think
that's cool.
The ability to kind of communicate in a more detailed way, right, to citizens is through web mapping applications. Right? The top one in the center with the green dots, that's actually a parking application that the city of West Palm Beach in Florida puts out on their website to show the public where there's available parking, and it's fed by kind of real-time meter status. So that anytime that if you're, where are areas, if I'm going down to West Palm, if you've been there, it's really hard to park. Being able to understand, hey, there are pockets of areas, is there kind of, where's there parking available? And then being able to link to the smart meters so that you can pay all in that one place as well. Kind of flood inundation models, right? We all understand, I think, how web mapping applications work, but it's kind of another option for communicating with citizens. But the new way, I think, an additional way, I guess the newer concept I wanted to share today was around a product that Esri has released in the last couple of years called the Arcgis Hub. And this is now taking the ability for you to interact with your citizens in a two-way engagement and collaboration. So it's not, the other two examples, story maps and the web maps, are about kind of pushing, hey, I want people to know this information, I'm just going to share it out there. If you come to my website, that's great. Arcgis Hub is really meant to be focused around a key initiative that your organization is working on, and people who care about that initiative and want to be engaged as citizens on that initiative, right? So we talked through kind of using an example here with like homelessness in Anchorage is an initiative, right? They're trying to mitigate homelessness. Citizens care, right? They are providing feedback. They're calling the police department. They also want to know when they're right. You can think about it. That's like a concept of an initiative. But really, what it does is kind of takes that kind of government work that you do, and you're kind of pushing it out and marrying it with your, I guess Chris Citizen here that cares about homelessness in Anchorage could go to the Anchorage website and say, I care about this, sign me up. And through my social media credentials like Facebook or like our Google or Amazon credentials, that you can go through and say, hi, you know what, I'm not just a public person coming in to report about this homelessness stuff. I'm giving you feedback, and I want to know what's being acted upon and how it's happening. Kind of deep down, if you're familiar with Arcgis Online, Washington is using the hub to be able to communicate with fishermen and get information back on their catch. So they now can go in with an identity and saying, I'm Chris Fisherman now, and I want to be able to provide information back to my environmental agencies, and they can do that. So there's a whole different kind of ways, but it's, think about it, the hub is being used. It's a really interesting concept. LA has deployed it. We had the state of California procured the Arcgis Hub so that they have volunteers that are going out for the census to be able to educate people how important the census is, get some kind of base counts of how many people are out there. And these people are volunteers. So they didn't want to arm everybody with a Arcgis Online named user account. They needed a way for and this is what's happening. I can report that. So the dots on the map like you saw from Aaron earlier, those are every time they go to a house, they're updating it, they can see what the counts are, and they're reporting back that they've canvassed certain areas. So that was the way that they applied. Kind of citizen engagement collaboration, and that trend that we're seeing is kind of going from the push to the government side is really focused on kind of what's the initiative, what do we want to collaborate with the citizens on, right? You're kind of pushing information. The community is engaged and has that experience and is contributing in the way that it makes sense for that initiative. So just I think another trend that we're seeing, kind of that whole citizen engagement kind of area evolve. The other neat kind of for I want to see community events, or I want to follow certain things. I want to follow an initiative. But I think the most interesting is kind of the dashboard. So how are you doing against a certain initiative, right? What kind of feedback are you getting? How many participants do you have? So there's all that behind the scenes kind of measurement that's happening at the same time. Kind of the evolution, I think what we're seeing is that small communities, any size community, right? State government, local government, the smallest of all communities, the largest of all communities, they'll have the same objectives, right? Every community wants to be livable. You want a nice place to live, right? You want your community to be healthy. You want it to be resilient and transparent and sustainable, right? Those are all characteristics of large and small. It doesn't matter if you have 100 people or 5 million people, right? These things all prevail. I think the interesting kind of trend that we're seeing here, and I think it's, you know, how do things happen, right? People start thinking about things that they want to do, and, you know, we shape our minds in the way that we kind of expect things, and we're influenced in different ways to just want to do more and expect more. I think we also see that with the intersection of technology and some of those easy-to-use applications, kind of breaking down some of those barriers which the small communities had to get started, right? So I think we start to see kind of this evolution of these smaller and smaller organizations being able to kind of leverage spatial information and geography to help solve the challenges that they're dealing with, because they do have those same challenges as any organization. I grabbed just a handful of examples here to share with you. They all kind of, this is what we've heard a lot about, right? Kind of replacing paper with mobile solutions. They kind of had some successes there at the bottom, right, where it saved 60,000. Paying before to paying now. I think your paper example, Aaron, was pretty interesting, right? That's one I didn't actually really think about. You think about people, you think about time, you think about all this, and think about all the paper, right, to print this stuff on. So, yeah, I think kind of baselining how things work now to how you move forward is, you know, an interesting kind of piece in the ROI story. But this one was an interesting one as well, kind of moving to more of a kind of a web-based field. Instead of waiting for people to come in and get get their updates and their work orders, being able to do that. They saved, in this case, a lot of time before coming in and out of the office, right, and being able to optimize their time within the field. This is, and they're all interesting, right? I guess I can kind of not share that for every single one because they all are truly doing something interesting. But you know, this was an initiative kind of about expanding in the community, making sure that they had up-to-date property status condition maps. You know, they worked in piloting this in a certain area and then evolved together. This was actually, Cambridge, Maryland is a very, very small community. This is more of a utility example, and you know, these stories, and I think what we heard this morning, get so exciting to us because people just take the technology and apply it in like all these really interesting ways. And you know, I was reading through this example that somebody shared with me, and you know, you don't think about how many kind of inoperable meters, right, that may be out there within a community, right? They found that 20% of their meters were dead meters, and they were trying to figure out kind of where potential revenue loss was, what were they dealing with. That data also then was shared with the other departments within the community as they were dealing with blight issues, and the police department was trying to figure out where do they have vacant and abandoned housing. So where this started is a water utility example. The kind of the results in the analysis and what they were able to find was able to benefit a whole bunch of other departments that all needed that information to operate in the way that they needed it. So they didn't care about the water stuff at the end of the day. They just wanted to understand kind of where they had, you know, abandoned properties and how they had to protect it. Another census example, we're seeing more and more of these kind of come up recently with kind of people prepping for the census. I'll pause there. I feel like I'm going really fast at this point. Any questions on any of those users? The only last thing I have to highlight are the some highlights from the user conference. And any questions so far?
Can you go back a slide?
Okay.
Since this is coming up, we're preparing for it, so I was curious.
Yeah, no, we've had a lot. I mean, I think the states are looking at redistricting. You know, we're kind of seeing that as the trend. We starting to see that outreach. Kind of states really worried about kind of the funds and making sure that every person's counted, so you can get, you know, the right funding back. And we have states worried about losing seats and kind of moving forward. It's been interesting, some of the data at the state level that they've been sharing with us about, you know, one person kind of not being included in the census and how that results financially and monetarily to their state is like exorbitant. I had like, you know, you start to really dig into this stuff, it gets really interesting. But then how the locals are, you know, kind of going through all like kind of the local process now and how they're dealing with kind of data and response back up to their state. So there's kind of roles for everybody in this one. All right. I'll forge through. So as I mentioned, we did our user conference. Has anybody been to the user conference here? Did you go this year? Yep. Good. This is our biggest conference ever. We do it every year in July in San Diego. We usually get about 15 or 16,000 people. This year we had 18,000 people. And we spend a week. It's very kind of business focused and also lots of technical sessions over the course of those days. Kind of the first highlight, I think, is to show that, kind of highlight an awesome success here. So the story that we saw this morning from Anchorage on Homelessness was awarded a Special Achievement Award in GIS. We do these every year, and they are individually chosen across the globe. And this year, Anchorage won one. They were nominated by Esri's health team for their work in responding to the homelessness issue. So these are really looking at kind of thought leaders who are doing really great work in a certain area, and we recognize those for their success. So local, and not one but two this year from Alaska, where we also had the Alaska Division of Community and Regional Affairs. So both really, really great examples. And we have some states that don't have any award winners in those states, and this year Alaska had two. So really exciting work. We can send details. There's links to all of those if you want to read more about any one of the stories. I think we've talked a lot about fields, so I don't want to kind of get in there, but I think it's an ever-expanding area for us. If you are using kind of any of the field tools, they'll continue to kind of evolve. We are adding additional enhancements. There'll be a new version of Collector coming out as well this fall, and or by the end of the year, I guess I should say. We'll have the Collector option for Collector as well. So both will move forward. Some of the capabilities that users were asking for have gotten a little challenging for us to put in the current version, so we'll expand to the next version. You continue to use both, nothing will change. We're also looking at ways, how do we kind of, work on things like battery and making sure that, those things aren't going to drain batteries and all those important things to us with mobile devices. And then, some other additional tools here for Explorer. We have lots of requests for a digital map book in the field. And, you might not be doing Collector, but you're a viewer and you want to be, you're a forest worker and you want to be able to go out and just be able to understand where you are, right? There's some additional capabilities like that that are coming. The big focus for us, you'll continue to see a lot more advancements there, as well as the operations dashboard tools. These work in Arcgis Online, or if you're using the on-premise version of Arcgis Online that we call Arcgis Enterprise. Additional kind of capabilities there. We've improved kind of performance, additional widgets, the ability to customize the dashboards in different ways easier, right? So you can see kind of a whole the situational awareness viewer, which is a version of the operations dashboard. There's a whole bunch of additional widgets that have come in. The ability for you to embed a dashboard into an existing website as well. So the kind of the interaction between some of those. I guess the latest. So lots of enhancements there. One area that I don't think gets enough kind of press or attention is around the content. If you use any one of our products, you have access to all of the information that is there. So if you haven't taken a look at that, the easiest place to find the content is what we call the Arcgis Living Atlas. Kind of different types of characteristics of demographics. We call them like tapestry boundaries, or we will much of the information has also been contributed by our users. So if you're ever interested in putting your data up into the Living Atlas, because it's easier for your organization, you can do that. The state of Texas has asked us to take the imagery for the entire state that they had just recently flown. We took that, baked it into our base map. So now the Texas Office of GIS doesn't have to serve it to their users and have the computing power to do that to all the users across the state of Texas. And now every user gets, across the FGIS gets access to that. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody in that case. But lots of really rich, valuable data. And I think, like I said, I think we talk about it enough. Insights is a new application for, think about it as an application for an Arcgis Online user or somebody who's using Arcgis Enterprise. I think the easiest way I can describe it is thinking about, it's like a spatial BI tool, right? It gives you the ability to kind of interact and analyze information, unstructured content. You can drag and drop Excel files. You can take information and start to try to gain insight from it, right? So this is very much not a power user tool as well. It allows you kind of a non-traditional, kind of like a business analyst to be able to kind of drag and drop different types of data to understand patterns or where things are happening. We could probably do a whole session on insights at some point because of the power of it. But just like I think, know that this is a tool that's out there and accessible with any of the enterprise agreements, and there's lots of them here in the state. You have access to a handful of insight licenses included. So if you want to try around with insights, you can do that. Has anybody migrated to Pro? Some nods thinking about it, maybe a little bit. I was actually surprised at the user conference. I was talking with people of like how far people have got kind of with some of the migration. If you're not familiar with kind of Esri's long list of product names, and you need a university education sometime to understand how these pieces of familiar with ArcMap. It's another application. like ArcMap. It will be the predecessor to ArcMap over time, but ArcMap will live for, I think I looked at the product roadmap right now, and the current version is supported for another 7 years, and we'll have future versions of ArcMap, so it's not going anywhere soon. But our desktop focus has been targeted to Pro, so a lot of the enhancements that you'll see was, really we just got to a point where we couldn't enhance some of the functionality requirements that were being asked of us from users because ArcMap was really designed 15 years ago, right? So for us to be able to take advantage of new technologies like new utility networks and some of our roads and highways information for our DOTs, our whole bunch of information here, but I think just know that as your, I think our Esri's perspective in kind of looking at Pro is when it makes sense for you. If you are starting something new, if you have a new user, right, training them in ArcMap, unless you have some kind of dependencies on custom applications, I'd have them look at Pro, and then they're not evolving from one to the other. But do it as it makes sense for you. There's no pressure from Esri and timing to do that. Pro has the same extensions and with additional capabilities as our desktop products, but the new extension is the image analyst extension. So it's kind of taking some of the enhancements that we had with some of our image extensions in the past, but completely overhauled it with some of the capabilities that can work with imagery. It's super fast. Another one that is coming soon to Pro, Locate XT, and that gives you the ability to kind of work with unstructured text integration pretty easy. So again, these extensions just extend the functionality of Pro and what you have. A lot of focus in online. You can see kind of a whole handful of the new and what's coming here. I know in kind of recognition of time here, I won't go into lots of those, but huge focus on Pro. I think some of the exciting things that I've noticed are easier search, the ability to kind of quickly find the information that you need. There's also the is authoritative. Have you ever gone and looked for parcel data and you find 5 different kind of parcel layers or 5 different boundary layers and you don't know whose is what? The ability for you to kind of go in and say, you know what, people might put derivative versions of different data sets in here, but this one is authoritative, or this one is decommissioned and we shouldn't be using that. You can mark those and take advantage of some of that. On the security side, I know which is very important, we have continued to advance our FedRAMP authorized security levels for the federal government. We just, right before the user conference, had got an additional FedRAMP certification. It's a big focus for us, security across kind of Esri. Enterprise is the tool that allows you to kind of manage all of your data, but it also has the functionality to allow you to do what we talk about with Arcgis Online. And if you have sensitive data or you want to manage that yourself, to be able to take that and put it on premise. So that's where a lot of the enhancements have come, is kind of the user experience around managing kind of that environment if you've chosen to put that on premise. But then also some of the additional functionality around integrating kind of with big data, ability to work with lots and lots of data, real-time data, and kind of make sense of that in fast. There's lots coming, which is pretty exciting on the machine learning and kind of predictive analytics side. That's a big focus for us. We're doing a lot with AI. There's a lot of really cool artificial intelligence and AR work that's in Pro. You'll see some that are there now. You'll see more and more of that coming. And then some system work as well as additional kind of Python notebook support for hosted options within Enterprise. So I'm going to leave a copy of kind of all of this, you know, with Doug, and that we can kind of share all these PDFs out. I know, like I said, I'm going pretty fast. And then our focus on solution products, and I'm just kind of close to wrapping up here, but we have a couple new ones where we talked about Hub, but ArcGIS Indoors, if you're trying to manage, so like we worked with concept of being able to kind of manage spaces and people and assets all within indoors and not kind of the broader geographical scale. And then for kind of more of our regional planning agencies and our city and local government planning, kind of ArcGIS Urban is a really, really cool tool for running scenarios and situations against kind of planning projects and plan initiatives. It also has tools for communicating out to the public and to be able to kind of get feedback back. So ArcGIS Urban and Indoors are coming soon. And then what's next, right? So I think where are we in our evolution? This is what we shared kind of at the conference. We always have a release right before the user conference. We'll have another release by the end of the year. It's more going to be a dot kind of release. Another major kind of coming for some of those, what's coming on those slides, right? That kind of the whole handful I just showed. A lot of those kind of what coming are in that 2019 time frame. We look to have, don't hold me to this, I know we're being recorded, so I'll be careful. Probably around kind of like a bigger release around kind of the March, April time frame for that 10.7 and then Pro 2.3. So all of our products are on the same schedule except for Pro because it's a different code base, so it has a different version number. And then just to wrap, does anybody participate in any of kind of the community forums that we have? It's a great way to stay updated on kind of some of these topics. We have an Arcgis for local government and state government meetups that happen. Anybody do any of these? No? They're good resources for information, even if you can't attend all the time. Most of those are like webinars. You can sign up and you see different threads of what's happening. We also have like environmental communities and transportation communities. The resource on the left is all those solution pages, but you can also get to those solution templates on GitHub. If you go to the Esri's on GitHub page, all that source code's available for you to take and go to town. So lots of information kind of to help you just on an ad hoc as needed basis. For having me, I really enjoyed this morning. If there's ever anything I can help with or any questions, please let me know. But thank you. Any questions? Any time for questions, or should we move on?
We do. Well, it's
lunch?
at lunchtime.
All right.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you. It's all yours. All right. Thank you so much.
I'm Sierra Alcantara with MTA, the Records Management Supervisor, and I've been attending the Smart Communities Forum approximately 2 years. I guess you said it's been going on for 2.5. I don't know that I was there for the very first one, but ours is exciting for us and maybe not quite as exciting as some of the ones that they were demonstrating, but the ideas for us were stemmed from coming to the Smart Communities forums. So we realized that our land base that we had at MTA, which covers a small section of the Kenai Peninsula, a big section of the Mat-Su-Borough, a little bit of the municipality of Anchorage, had been shifted slightly because we had homegrown maps that we had maintained. So we realized with all the work that the Mat-Su-Borough had done recently in the last several years to collect control points and stuff, that we needed to probably align with theirs. So we started the project really in January 2018. And through that, we brought in all of the GIS, which they use the shape files. We were able to FME that into our own facilities management system, which is now allowing us to have better regulatory reporting, and we can more accurately certify where our facilities are, which also then better aligns with the census data, because we're realizing that that's coming up in 2020 as well. So again, by aligning our mapping systems, by using the GIS data that's coming from all of the local governments, it alleviates duplication of work, which therefore is reducing costs. It also has sort of people in this room that started at MTA as high school interns a few years ago, and it's now expanded. So not only that'll continue to grow throughout the entire community. The other, knowing that they are a really small entity and don't really have a lot of standardizing addresses, which will allow for phone calls, and we're going to continue to work on that, help them come up with that, and then provide that data back to them. This is a quick thing. They are 20, or was it 12,000? They have about 1,900 residents, but with really hardly any addressing in their entire area at all. That makes for a very interesting, but that is the relationship that I think we're most excited about, and I assume that there'll be more coming as we continue, kind of like what Eric was talking about too, and I think he stepped out, but just that continued relationship with all of the communities using the government entities. How can we work smarter, not harder, not duplicating the same efforts? We all need the same kind of information, and sharing resources where we can. And I would encourage anybody else in here, I know we've had presentations in the past with UAA, but internships, again, we have 2 high school ones right now, and I think 3 college ones. So just it's a great economic thing. It's great to have that on-the-job training. It gives them real-world experience and fosters all of the kind of relationships between the schools. And I think we even have somebody in the audience that has a child that works for us. And I believe that we're going to continue with the Matsu School District also, and going into the classrooms and taking things that we have to offer, any expertise that we have in our GIS or drafting engineering potentially, and looking at small curriculums for that as well. So that's pretty much, oh, yes?
Yeah. Could you give a quick example of the current address database, how it looks right now?
How it looks right now?
Why are we helping?
Well, basically, because if you try to look, like, the address here, I'll use ours, is for MTA, it's 1740 South Chugat Street, Palmer. And if you look up an address in Denali, it's house number 0, Parks Highway, and it says Denali. So you might have a little bit of, depending on what the owner provided, kind of like what the officers were saying, you know, it's mile this, take the second right at the big rock, or at the broke down, you know, the house with the tarp. Well, again, it's Alaska, so. The city themselves, but as far as the entire chunk of the Matsu Borough. So they were excited, and we're excited to try to reach out and help them, because again.
What location information? So they have I guess it's right now still at the early stages. So
they provided me what they had last, which is from approximately 2009. Okay. They believe information along the Parks Highway for everywhere that we provide service to, and we're going to look at basically re-providing them with all of our land base, and then with that work together to come up with what they call the MSAG, I guess. You know, if it's Park Street, that the houses can be between 100 and 500 along there, and actually providing legal addresses. And then once we've added that into the GIS system, we would be providing that back to them. They will work with the 911, but they don't have the funding to actually dedicate resources to doing all the mapping.
So how does an address actually? But you have to have a number. So there's a classification kind of parameter that house can be classified as. Then they pick an address within that range for that given property.
Right, and we'll be working with them. They're going to send us the guidelines and they're, I believe, going to work with Fairbanks, North Star Borough, to kind of come up with the standards, since that's the closest bigger borough that they border almost.
And the data they have, so I guess I'm trying to think what the start is. In Denali, they have
that's pretty much almost all that they have.
A parcel.
Yeah, they just have that red boundary.
Right.
And they have.
Consider, right? Do they have like a parcel locate, and then you know what I'm saying? So like.
Use the parcel location that we have in our GIS system that we have been maintaining as every new survey plat gets recorded with DNR or doing that and tying that back, providing it with a township range and section that it resides in, and then helping them come up with the address. Again, we have follow-up meetings, partner with us, you know, to work on this project, but there's still further conversations now. What are the next steps? So it was first gathering what they had and comparing it to what we had. And then Marcia, she's potentially listening.
Two and a half years ago, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Participating on our very first event, so.
Yeah.
Probably being driven one, you know, potential that number going down.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a little
Right. Yeah, I mean, and tying it to the actual like township and range again, but coming up with the physical address numbers, that'll be a collaboration. They'll provide us with the ranges that they anticipate when they're going to, again, be able to export it out through FME into shape files that they can use. And I'm not sure if we'll continue to maintain that for them. Look forward to helping them.
I'm Robbie Nash. I'm the outside plant engineering construction manager. I just want to spend the next few minutes, I know we're getting close to lunch, and kind of give you a brief background of what outside plant engineering is, and some historical. Just a few short years ago, like 5 years ago, this is one of the big acts. And this is the typical pencil, but I used to laugh and say this was used for our major engineering project. And it sounds funny, but I'm telling you, 5 years ago, that's where my engineering department was at. They used to work for Verizon years ago, and when it came to MDA, the United States. So a lot of things have changed over the years from construction and engineering, a lot of different methods. Here, I don't know how many years ago that was. At one time, that's the way we placed cable. Well, went on our construction methods, and this is a plow cat plowing against fiber. Now, I don't think there's anybody from the Corps of Engineers here or Fishing Gang, but that was a long time ago. Our MTA surveys there, I think Eric White said it earlier that the Matsu borough's footprint's about the size of the state. We actually just completed last week, got the light on it and tested. We've got fiber all the way to Fairbanks now, which was a 2-year project. And we also have a subsidiary MTAC that has a fiber network in Fairbanks. Just to give us a brief background, like I said, 5 years ago, 2013, racers, every single one of them. With that being said, we had outside plant engineers, and I also had a drafting department. Engineer is, or outside plant is, like probably summing up, like I got one of my kids, phone company, it's like, I'm an outside plant engineer. He said, all I did is get a phone, it works. So I had to go there and explain to him, you know, all these apps are cool. Cell tower goes on a fiber network. It goes to a central office, then it goes on a submarine fiber, all the way down to the lower 48. Whether it's on MTA's network, ACS's, or whatever, that's what the outside plant world, that's what we deal with. So I had to explain to him, if you go outside, everything you see outside that you can physically touch, that's outside plant, towers and all. So he would go out, he would take his field notes for a new project, he would spend his time driving meticulous notes, drawing meticulous notes. He'd walk over, he'd give it to a drafter. And one time, Sierra was in our drafting. He'd bring back this pretty map to the engineer. Of course, the engineer had to change something, and he'd go back, and this exchange would happen 5 or 6. We'd kick it down to construction linemen. They would go out, they'd build it, splice it, turn it up, we had service. Then that drawing would come back up. That's a red line as-built. How they actually built it. Instead of 1,000 feet, it was 9. drafting department would take this red line as-built and draw it again in AutoCAD in a separate file. That was our map sheet. And thank God in 2013, 5 years ago, we made the plunge and got into a GIS system. Now, change from that world is now our engineers are they become a project manager of their own project. They design their jobs in a GIS system, what we call MapCom. It's their M4 system. So it's live. It's got a data system behind it. They draw it. It goes through the same approval process, same as before. It goes down, alignment, build. Project that they design, they'll look at the footages, they update the footages correctly where it's supposed to be, and then they hit one button. And it changes from a proposed route to existing. And our techs in the field can look on their MapCom viewer or M4 viewer, or any our customer service reps or business service reps, they can look and see what's available immediately. So it really changed the things on how we do business. So that's the amount of projects that we do. You can imagine how many. I'm another slide I should. As of August of this year, we've already done 490 projects, ranging from 5,000 to over 1 million. So really, we got a lot of efficiencies built in. We were able to do a lot more work. So one of the other facets that I would like to talk about is where I think we would like to, on the would like to suggest, and that's in the world of road management or road construction projects. We deal with, a couple of my engineers are dedicated just dealing with road projects, whether it's the Matsu Borough or the last Department of Transportation. And you guys all know, everybody sees there, I think there's a ballot initiative. A lot of money. It costs us a lot of money. We get money from the federal government, from our taxes. Well, a lot of the different ways that when they're going to design a project, from the utilities on where our facilities are in the right of way. Because the Alaska is one of the, I think there's only 2 states in the union that if we're permitted to be in the right of way, well, then the state pays us to move our facilities. So what they'll do, it'll come in as a form of a request for red lines, is what they say. And red lines of your facilities in this project area. So we'd open up the CD and it would be a PDF copy of the project line. So we print these prints out. Here's the road area. And they would look at it and say, okay, we're on this side of the road. No, we're on this side. Here's where we jog out and know it's an easement. So they would go through and, I mean, it would take a lot of time. You can figure for each project they would do this. Then we try to be efficient and scan it back to them, or we would mail it back to them. So that they would take this information and redraw it or have it drawn to AutoCAD into their project area, so they could go ahead and complete their preliminary engineering design of the project. So you can imagine how long a road project will take. We already see how long it takes. How it takes before it even gets approved and agreed to start. So that, a PDF, go ahead. Hand drawing. So a few short years ago, we actually started requesting that when they want a red line from us, in order for us, because we have our own capital plan that we requested that they send us that project in an AutoCAD version. So nowadays, like the Department of Transportation, they'll drop it off at a Z file, we'll pick it up. So we'll have the AutoCAD. And what that is, that converts that AutoCAD drawing into our MapCom system. Now when it's in our MapCom system, now we can see electronically facilities are with that road project. We'll take our facilities and save that as a drawing for DOT. We'll put it back through the FME workbench, and now we have an AutoCAD drawing that we can send back to DOT. So now DOT gets this AutoCAD drawing in their project area of where our facilities are at. And So and even with that, if that's increased efficiency process, we still, it depends on the engineer, depends on South Central area DOT, or if you're working out of Fairbanks or the borough on different projects, sometimes we'll still get PDS. So I mean, that's something that we need to work on in the future. So like I said, in 2013, we did 280 work orders. I had 4 drafters, I had 7 engineers. And my outside plant budget is probably 4 times as much as what it was in 2013. Based on something pretty cool here. I don't think it lets me. There we go.
It's almost there. It's trying.
There we go. This is, we're talking about being efficient and is it moving? Yep. What you're looking at is, and we're always looking at ways to streamline stuff. This isn't construction. We did put fiber out the Glen Highway, 1,200-foot canyon. We used a drone to get across that canyon to bring a string across that brings the strand across, so we could put fiber across that strand. Those kind of ideas, you know, we're always trying to get that. It's pretty neat. Where years ago we had to use a bow and arrow, where somebody had that $1,200 piece of equipment right there saved them days of labor. All right, here's a DOT project. It was Church Road, the Parks Highway project, 43 to 48. It was design of it, and that's after the fact. This job here on it. And this is nothing against anyone. I mean, just with the process in this market community, we had a change order on phase 2 of that. The change, when you're doing a design, and this is everybody involved. If they had all that information up front at the beginning, maybe the design could have been done a little bit more efficient. Change orders, but it also costs us money and time. They finally just got in. So, what we are suggesting the MTA as far as initiative, as far as increased project efficiency, way to deliver accurate data. I spoke with where we exchange we go through the MTA, Instar, MEA, Chugash Electric, all the utilities, to include the railroad. We would send our facility maps to one. With that being said, only certain people had access to it. What if they had all that already on one database? So when they had new preliminary engineering to do on a suspected or a project they want to do, buy property somewhere else to do it. I spoke with Deputy Reardon at DOT right away, and they're in the project. They really agreed, and they'd like for us to pursue that. Maybe it's the time now that we suggest that we create a subcommittee of the utility. And so, the bottom line is, if we do that, we'd have to ensure duct base. Even if I can just show you, all right, here's the fiber, or if the large camp fiber nail is going to that way. They can engineer out, just like you engineer out safety on your project, you can engineer out the cost. So anybody at this point here, try to get through it for lunch for you guys. That's what we would like to suggest, that we could get something like that going, because it's going to save everybody all the way around. Any questions or comments? Jackie?
Probably could apply to cities and boroughs construction projects too.
Absolutely. I know the borough, I mean, why recreate the wheel? I know the borough uses a lot of the same procedures that the Department of Transportation does. In fact, some of the guys that have been their subject matter experts have retired from DOT and have been hired from the Matsu Borough on their capital works project, and it would work with them as well. Or community. Yes, Ron.
So has there been, I guess, prior efforts, or how real is that?
I think it's very real. I think I was talking to Deputy Reardon yesterday, and where she's at on the Department of Transportation, she's jobs, or whenever they're doing DOT projects, they're the ones that assign utilities engineer that work with us for moving our utilities out of the way. And so what they would like to start out with, they're speaking with her, she would suggest we start out with that central location, and they can use that at least for permits. So I don't know how many people have applied for permits at the DOT sometimes, but if you want to do a project, it might take you 2 weeks, a month, it could take you a month, 2 months, 3 months just to get a permit back. Meanwhile, I've got people wanting higher bandwidth or wanting service. She was looking at a potential project to widen an apron on a road, and she's looking through a stack of maps, of utility maps, to see what's involved so they can design around it. You know, in this day and age, that's information. I mean, it's there. We just need a collaborative effort to actually get it going.
We got a message a couple months ago. I think it was Commissioner, was it Mark Lucan?
Yeah.
And I think it's a right-of-way team, and showing Eric and his team some links that showed some of the overlay that was similar to one of your pictures here.
Yeah.
And so it looks like they've been doing quite a bit of work on the GIS end, at least right-of-way.
There is, and I think the utilities, in a combination with the state, we have the technology to do it. We just need to collaborate, get together in a room, just get it going. Yeah. That kind of initiative.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
More of a comment, but so I worked with the state for 3 years as CIO, and so part of NASCIO that did the data thing. And so some of the states are doing that right now. Like I know Texas, I worked with Karen Robinson, she was CIO there. They have the Dig Once kind of initiative. So they start working on all road projects with all the utilities. And the idea is if they're going to do something, they're already upgrading infrastructure from other states that we could leverage for that collaboration here.
Absolutely.
And I have some information on the states that I thought were more mature and progressive in that space that we want to.
You know, absolutely. And to take that a step further, it's a private organization, isn't it, 811? So I'm not saying it's not doable. It's just some things you have to work out. But wouldn't it be cool that if you call in, the state locate system has the maps and you can tell you, well, there's nothing there. Or you've got gas, and even though they'll still have to go out and locate, but in this day and time, there's no reason why you can't get locates faster and speed up.
And I think even like the public-private sector kind of teaming up in Alaska, we kind of like when the Quintillion fiber project was coming down the Dalton Highway, we were working right away with DOT to say, okay, we'll let you bury it down here and we'll put in all the cubes and we'll do snow plowing and give you power that we can use for state for future communications up that road. So.
And then, as we build onto this and we exchange our data with the state, there's no reason why they can't exchange that information with us. Especially how many times have you seen the same surveyor out on the same road? Why not have that survey? I mean, there's any surveyors in here. That's not really a lot of money. Nice to be able to have then the more surveyed information data we get back from the state or NSTAR or MEA, the more accurate we are in our own facility, the less customer has, less outages.
Yeah, so some interesting subjects have come up, and this has evolved for many, many years. And it all comes down to ownership of those layers versus collaboration. So parcels, we used to using the best data available, and it's evolved as the borough and other. When it comes to the master street address guide, unfortunately, that's the system that feeds emergency services. Somebody needs to own it. It needs to be updated. There's many lessons learned about that not being accurate. And in the borough, we had 4 dispatch centers at one point, and through lessons learned, lawsuits and other failures in Alaska, that when that master street address guide is a liability for everybody, and when it's not cooperated funded, it unfortunately becomes a bigger liability than it should be. It's kind of interesting, but the addressing, there are standards. It's who owns that, who's responsible for it, and how do we share that, and who's the backup, etc. But this has been a long time coming, but there's different priorities of those data layers. And in parcel base in the North Slope or the Denali Borough, they don't tax their property, so it's unlike the Valley where there's a business driver around maintaining that data set versus a different business driver for addresses. So,
I know that's one of our top priorities right now, is to get our data. All right, thank you very much. Oh, yes,
I just want to quickly interject here, kind of give some credit and thank you to the MTA team that's here. Sarah acknowledged our partnership with the school district and having interns and the ability to really have work-based learning for our young, basically the pipeline to the this year, and then he'll end up being a mentor teacher to push that out to other schools, but really having the availability of our high school students as well as college students to feed some of your systems. And that really came out of this Smart Communities meeting. We started attending after we were kind of had a reach out from MTA. They actually had some of our draftsmen in our schools working on projects for them. That kind of migrated for some of them to be able to actually go to work on site at MTA. But I think that's a great model for other entities to look out. So I wanted to look at. I wanted to thank them for being a great partner for that, but then also to kind of entertain the idea that we have a great skill set in our young people, and appreciate the work with Terry and the Ezra team getting us the latest, greatest curriculum. And so anyway, just a quick reach out and acknowledge that this forum has also enabled that to happen. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I'll fit my iPhone.
So it's quarter to noon, but I'm hoping that we got, I believe, food. I'm hoping there's food out there. So grab some food. We can kind of just congregate here about noon, make it a kind of a short lunch to talk about some other local projects, a little bit about the security. I think we'll have that be a lessons learned topic for next time on this theorizing. And I know for next time we're actually going to talk about digital transformation. Tim from Gardner will be part of our discussion on November 1st. But get some food and we can talk about that and have a couple other follow-ups. So